of that bridge alone is going to cause a lot of traffic issues. And then you add the fact that they are closing down a lot of exits and ramps into this area so that the public safety can do the job that they need to do. At this point, it's going to be extricating those vehicles because we do know that all the people have been taken, safely away from the area, anyone who was involved in that accident. But in terms of traffic, I believe we have a map that's going to show an update on where things are looking pretty slow at this time. If we can take a look at that, we can see things are definitely running a lot smoother, Heather.
Yeah, and as you're looking at this map, what you can't see, and perhaps we might be able to pull up the PennDOT camera. I know we have limited access to that for a short period of time, but let's just show you what's happening. If you're traveling on the Parkway East and you're heading outbound, you are very familiar with that exit ramp. If you wanted to go to Braddock Avenue, this is the Edgewood Swissvale exit. However, on the left part of that ramp where it splits, where it Y's, you are not able to head towards the left if you are heading towards Regent Square. There are emergency officials blocking right there, prohibiting traffic from going down that way. You know, we talked to Megan Schiller earlier this morning as she was trying to make her way to the scene, and even getting there was incredibly difficult because they are trying to restrict the area as much as possible. In fact, we also heard from public safety, who was reiterating a message from the park rangers earlier saying, we do not want people in the area. We do not want bystanders. Please avoid Frick Park if you can, if at all costs, because they are working heavily in that area. They earlier this morning had drones flying over because they knew those vehicles were down there below, but wanted to make sure that there were no people walking and enjoying the park at the time of the collapse.
Right, and that really, if you think about the timing of this, we understand it happened about 6:45, 6:50 this morning. The fact that there probably wouldn't be people on a snowy morning walking or running in that area, because we know that is a popular running and walking area of Frick Park. And we know that people have been trying to go to those areas to see what has happened. But again, we are hearing from people all around the country and a lot of legislators from our area here, local leaders, who are offering their support as they really try now to start to think about what's next. And of course, part of what's next is going to be funding for rebuilding this bridge and supporting the many other bridges that are still in very poor condition.
Yeah, I mean, we see the scene there, but we want to go now to Amy Wattis, who has been at UPMC Presbyterian Hospital for us this morning. Amy, I know that you got an update a short time ago about another person taken to Presby.
That's right, Heather. 3 people are now here at UPMC Presbyterian Hospital in Oakland, and we're told by UPMC that they are in fair condition. That's all we know right now about how they are doing. I asked a spokesperson here if doctors will be giving us an update, and she said not right now, but to keep checking in, and they'll be updating us as we learn more on this situation. As we reported earlier when we heard from Fire Chief Daryl Jones at the scene, 10 people were hurt, but only three of those people were taken here to the hospital. Again, UPMC Presby, that's where they are right now. So we are working to learn more. Nobody was taken to AHN. Again, just 3 hospitalized, non-life-threatening injuries, but fair condition. So as soon as we gather more here at the hospital, we will let you know, very scary situation for folks. And as soon as we hear more from UPMC, we will pass it along to you. Reporting live in Oakland, Amy Wattis, KDK News.
All right, certainly some good news, though, Amy. You know, when we first saw that collapse, you think about that and you think, how can people walk away from something like that? So when we heard that there were no injuries initially and then that escalated to 10, we worried. So it's good to know that they are in fair condition, those 3 individuals at the hospital. Another 7 minor injuries. We heard from the fire chief, who said that there were some slips and falls on the scene there.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you see that there was that one car on the hillside that's on its top. The cars down below, that it looks like the deck literally went straight down. Some of those toppled over. Again, that there were no major injuries, much less fatalities, is really pretty incredible. And just to let you know, we do have a drone that we are getting video from at the scene to get you a little bit closer look. We will be bringing you that as soon as we can.
So right now we want you to take a listen to something. This is a Nest Cam video from a neighbor who lives in that area. Quite startled. A lot of neighbors were hearing from when they heard this collapse, and you can even hear it in this video. So we're going to pause so you can listen in. Now imagine that, knowing that there's no thunderstorm in the area. You hear that and you think that sounds like a rumble of thunder. And I'm sure if you live in that neighborhood, it was much louder than what we're picking up on the Nest camera.
Right. You can, excuse me, you can imagine what that sounded like. All of that concrete and all of those cables busting. I mean, it's pretty incredible. And I don't know if we can go back to that picture we saw from the tweet from several years ago, someone who reported to 311 about the condition of that bridge. They had taken a picture of the underneath and were concerned about really the structural integrity of it, because they could see right there some of the issues. It says here, Pittsburgh 311 from Dr. G. Kachansky, I hope someone is keeping an eye on the underside of the Forbes Avenue Bridge over Frick Park. This is the bridge that just collapsed this morning. And it says one of the big X beams is rusted through entirely. And yes, I see the cables, so it's probably not a crisis. I'm thinking that was being facetious. We understand this was in 2018. Is that right, Heather?
Yes, I believe. And Chris Hoffman actually reported that he got some information that had been repaired at one point. And of course, at this point, we can't say for certain what repairs were made to that bridge. But that came in December of 2018, so several years ago that tweet was made. You know, one of the other things that we've been talking a lot about is the status of the bridge and how things are looking across the county as the president is set to arrive to discuss infrastructure across the country. We are pulling up some information from PennDOT here. This bridge is listed in overall poor condition. The deck and infrastructure were also given a poor rating. Again, coming from PennDOT, the substructure condition was satisfactory. And this is according to PennDOT's records. It's unclear when this inspection was done. Information we found earlier was that the bridge was last inspected in September of 2017. However, on the scene earlier this morning at 8:30 this morning, we heard that the last inspection known to city officials was in September of 2021. So again, this information coming from PennDOT listing the bridge as overall poor condition along Forbes Avenue near South Braddock Avenue. The deck condition, poor. Substructure condition, poor. And that the substructure condition was satisfactory in parts of it. So again, this is something that is known across the area. We know that our bridges are in desperate need of repair. And when they're not repaired, there is the possibility of something like this happening.
Well, and that's what's frightening, is to think that this is one of 123 bridges in Allegheny County in poor condition. So it's not unusual to have a bridge in poor condition. Clearly, that evaluation happens and nothing immediate is done. It's not taken out of use, and we are waiting, for the needed repairs. And of course, we are the city of bridges. I mean, we have 1,290 bridges in Allegheny County alone. That's according to the Federal Highway Administration. So you can imagine, of course, with the age of our city, when many of these were built, this one built 50 years ago, but many more even older, what kind of repairs these are needed, what repairs are needed to help improve the structure of these, as they have a lot of wear and tear over the years. We have some new video that we are going to take a look at now, and you can see here. I'm watching this live with you now, so let's take a look here. You can see it really from this vantage point. You see how steep that decline is down into Frick Park there, and how long that bridge really is and how much collapsed.
Yeah, you can really see this, and we thank a viewer for sending us in this vantage point. I'm trying to figure out, actually emailing with this person right now to see, is this a home? Does this person live nearby, or where exactly are they, to see this from this angle? But really just so scary to see the depth of this. To imagine driving across a bridge, something that we all do probably multiple times a day, given how many bridges are in Allegheny County, in Western Pennsylvania, and to know that something like this happened this morning is quite scary. We've heard from some neighbors, one in particular, John, I believe his name was, who told us that, this bridge is heavily traveled, and almost, thank goodness, for a 2-hour delay this morning. Had there not been a 2-hour delay, this bridge may have been packed with school buses, with people commuting to get their kids to school in time before they had to get to work. And thankfully, because of that little bit of snow, fewer people were on the bridge at the time.
Oh, it's so grateful that it was, that time of day, and that there weren't, runners maybe in the summer who could have been underneath the bridge, because we know this goes over the Fern Hollow area of Point Breeze, where a lot of people walk and run and enjoy the park. Let's go to Governor Tom Wolf's tweet now. He's been tweeting since this morning, saying that they've been on top of the situation and providing, any help that they can. But Governor Tom Wolf, of course, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman has been here. He is from Braddock. And we'll listen to him in just a moment. But first, let's see what Governor Tom Wolf is tweeting. He says, here, we are monitoring the situation in Pittsburgh and prepared to provide support as needed. Pittsburgh residents, please stay safe and continue to avoid the area. And again, yes, public safety has been asking people to both keep their vehicles away because of traffic issues in that immediate area of Point Breeze, and also to stop pedestrians from coming by just to take pictures, because we know it's of interest. But please keep it here with us. We will bring you those pictures as we have crews on the scene. They really don't want people to be gathering around
in that
those
area.
areas.
Earlier this morning, we heard from Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman. He was one of the first officials on scene this morning. He spoke with our Bryant Reed about the great need to take care of our bridges and our infrastructure. Take a listen to what he had to say.
It to a head just how critical these investments are to not only our community here in Pittsburgh, but all across the country.
Now, we had that huge bridge collapse a few years ago. Does this kind of bring you back to that moment? Have you ever seen anything like this?
We're the city of bridges. I mean, and how many other are out there? And it's just like these funds are critical to make sure that we're able to provide a safe transportation infrastructure for our residents. And it's jarring to see it up close and personal, how a bridge that you drove on yesterday just collapsed and fell into Frick Park. So, we have to make these critical investments, and hopefully, if anything good can come from this, catastrophe here, that we need to make these kind of critical investments in our communities and our nation.
Anything to say to first responders right now, the people who may be involved? We know 3 people were taken to the hospital, 10 injuries.
Yeah, it's just like they've done a superb job down there. They're even flying drones around to make sure that nothing's been overlooked, and they've been magnificent. And to those that have been hurt, thank God that it doesn't appear to be anything life-threatening. And it's just it's just an awful, surreal scene. But if anything good can come from it, is this idea that we need to make sure that this doesn't ever happen again.
Thank you so much.
And just one last question for me is just no, you're fine. One last question for me is that with this bridge collapse, they said that maintenance was done on it September of 2021, but how important is that maintenance to be done on a regular basis?
I'm not an expert, and I want to stay in my lane. I'm not aware of the exact inspection, but it does underscore just how important it is that we invest in our infrastructure, and the fact that this could have been much worse. We were fortunate that there was a public school delay, and the traffic could have been much more pronounced. So from my perspective, I hope it's a wake-up call to the nation that we need to make these critical infrastructure investments and make sure that everyone is afforded the ability to have a safe drive to work. It's just like the fact that there were vehicles on that. I'm just grateful nobody was killed, but just thankfully that's. I'm still in shock just seeing it. It's just not something you would expect, and the fact that we drove over it yesterday is so.
All right, hearing there from Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, we do want to tell you that it said live in the corner. That was something that was done earlier this morning while we are still in live coverage mode. So that was an earlier interview taped as we were live on the air earlier. Yeah.
About 8:30 this morning, several public officials, Mayor Ed Gainey, County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, City Commissioner Corey O'Connor, all out there on the scene with the Lieutenant Governor, and just assessing what was going on. And thankfully, again, 10 people injured, but we know no life-threatening injuries. 3 people still in the hospital in fair condition. And this is looking at the scene there. You can see, it's a little hard to see there, but that's the bridge that collapsed, or the lack of the bridge, I should say, right there where that yellow police tape is. We have KDKA's Andy Sheehan has been following this story this morning for us, and he's going to join us live on the phone with some updated information. Andy, what can you tell us?
Well, I've been talking to some officials on the scene, and it looks like President Biden may be coming to the scene itself, either before the scheduled start of his visit or at the end. I spoke with County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, and he said plans like that are in the works, that the White House does want to try to make it to the scene because it is sort of very much exemplary of the president's message today about the need for the infrastructure bill and the needs that it would address, and what better way to visually drive home that point is to visit the scene itself. Fitzgerald says that he has spoken with the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, who has pledged any and all support to the city and to the region in addressing this problem, trying to construct a remedy for this bridge, which, as we know, and I know in particular because I live in this area, what a major artery it is for traffic and transportation for the East End and for the city as well.
Andy, while we have you on the phone, we should discuss a little bit about President Biden's visit. He's scheduled to arrive early this afternoon, arriving at Allegheny County Airport, as we've been reporting here, and then headed to Hazelwood to go to Mill 19 to talk about this infrastructure bill. Tell us a little bit more about that bill and why it's so important, perhaps, for him to come to this scene.
Well, this was the first. There were two bills, right? I mean, this is sort of the hard infrastructure bill. The President Biden has his Build Back Better bill, which would be more social progress, and he has had trouble getting that one through. But this bill was passed. This is a $1 trillion plus bill that is going to address aging infrastructure across the United States, and in particular roads and bridges. And as we know, in this region, we have more bridges in the city of Pittsburgh than Venice, Italy, if you can believe that. And a lot of them are, as we've reported over the years, are in very poor condition. We've looked at the report this morning about this particular bridge, one of 30 that was inspected last year, was just inspected in September, and it was noted to be in poor condition. Earlier on, you showed this tweet and this picture of a rusted undercarriage of the bridge. We'll be digging into that. What was the weight limit? This bridge was apparently built like in 1970, but it was rated as poor. And under this infrastructure bill, this would be, if not a first priority, it would be one of these priority projects of this infrastructure bill that Biden is here to basically take kind of a victory lap that they had passed this thing and money is forthcoming around the country. This is the second collapse that we've had in this region over the last couple of years. You remember the bridge at Turtle Creek at Route 30, also a major thoroughfare, and resulting in traffic headaches for the better part of a year before it was repaired. And remarkably, there was very little injuries in that collapse. And today, just a miracle. Brian had interviewed one of the residents who said, had this happened, 20 minutes later, there obviously city, this is the route that they take. They come down Braddock Avenue and then onto Forbes and over this bridge. And, it is backed up and crowded from, 7 o'clock on. So happening just before 7 o'clock was very providential and fortuitous and a wonderful thing. Just a miracle in my mind that these people that went down in these cars and were apparently did not receive major injuries is really incredible.
It is incredible, and we're taking a live look now right at the scene, just from a distance away, but you can see what we're seeing now, and just simply incredible. Andy, to reiterate, your sources telling you President Biden on his trip here to Pittsburgh today may, in the works at least, visit the bridge collapse site.
That is correct. They're trying to work that out. Apparently, the White House is eager to do that. The president also, not just to make this a political thing about the need for this bill, but also, he has not been known for his compassion, and he's going to come here and to show his concern for the people that went down into the valley, and his support for the first responders and the city workers that are now saddled.
Andy, we hate to interrupt you, and we appreciate you bringing us this breaking news here about the possible president's visit to the collapse site. But we want to get now to Adam Brandoff. We're working to get him on the phone, of course, with the Allegheny County Port Authority. As you know, that there was a Port Authority bus on the bridge at the time of the collapse with multiple people on the bus, including the driver. And we do know that there were 3 individuals taken to the hospital from this collapse site. We haven't heard yet about who those individuals are, if they were from the vehicles down below or if they were on the bus, although we believe that some may have been on the bus. In fact, it was just an incredible effort, as we heard, Christine, from first responders trying to get to those individuals.
Right, yeah. The fire chief, Daryl Jones, said that they had to extricate them using rappelling equipment, to use ropes to pull them up. You can see there, that looks like it is the bus, and you can see what kind of angle it's at. It's probably an 80-degree angle. It's unbelievable how steep that is. Luckily, it looks like it kind of came to rest on a part of the bridge that had buckled, but we understand that they used rappelling equipment as well as a daisy chain, which is where people go hand to hand to secure each other and to get those people up to safety. 3 people from that bus, a driver and 2 passengers, is what we understand, although we're waiting to hear more from Port Authority, but we understand those are the 3 people at UPMC Presbyterian Hospital who are now in fair condition. But again, we've been reporting this morning that 7 additional people suffered minor injuries, 3 in the hospital, but no one with life-threatening injuries, and incredibly no fatalities. So let's go live now to KDKA's Ross Gadati, who is also on the scene covering this for us this morning among many of our reporters from all angles. Ross.
Yeah, good morning. I'm going to step out of the way. We're going to give you a little closer view of the bridge that has collapsed. We are about, I'd say, maybe 150 yards. We're sitting on the edge of the ravine where this bridge fell into this morning. Now, I don't know to what extent we've done any as far as a history, as far as this bridge goes. What I've been able to find out, checking into state records and so forth, you could see down at the bottom as we're speaking, what looks to be a Pittsburgh firefighter or paramedic going close to the bottom of the now collapsed structure at the almost near point or middle point where you might be able to see off to the left is an SUV. There is not a lot of activity down here other than that particular firefighter. We have been told that there were search dogs and so forth looking at or near or under the structure. However, we've yet to see them. This scene, for the most part, as far as first responding goes, is kind of static at this point. They're just trying to keep people away from the structure, given its potential. If it collapsed, it can still slide and so forth. Now, We live in an old city, and old cities have old bridges, and we have some pretty tough weather. This particular bridge, if we don't know already, if you're just checking in, spans South Braddock and South Dallas Avenues. This bridge was used a lot. And if you're going into Squirrel Hill, it's a huge artery. How's this getting this condition? Well, we've learned from many other bridge problems in western Pennsylvania, it's a matter of salt, weather, time, use. But I've been told by someone inside the city that this was last inspected in September of 2021. This is from what I was able to gather, just your basic cement and steel bridge, last rated in poor condition. They had some significant repairs done to this, as we understand it, in the last few years. It was built in 1970, so you're looking at a 50-year-old structure here. And to give you how long it is, 500-foot long bridge. It had a 26-ton weight limit. As to whether or not that weight limit was reduced due to the structure and the nature of the bridge, we're not sure. We don't know one thing. It was unable to handle the weight this morning, and we're hearing the tales of people who say that incredible that anybody was able to get out of this with just injuries, let alone not get killed. Once again, you see there are firefighters and paramedics continuing to do a survey at or near the bottom of the bridge into the ravine. The ravine really just covers a small creek and a walking trail, so there's no major traffic underneath it. There's not a rail spur, but there is a big mess, and it is simply incredible as I look and I see that enormous red articulated Port Authority transit bus just sitting there where it is in the wake of this collapse is simply amazing. I think it's been made, the point has been made a few times that this could have been, and it's a cliche-ish kind of thing, but this could have been so much worse. Imagine this happening 2 hours later, that bridge perhaps with a lot of people in it. Oh, you'll excuse me, I'm going to step over a little bit longer here, take a look. Yeah, there's another paramedic down there, firefighter, first responder. It's hard to see exactly what's on the back of their jacket. You'll forgive my ignorance on that one, but they're continuing to evaluate the scene and the bottom of the structure to the extent that they can, but there doesn't appear to be an emergent nature to their surveying right now, so I don't know that they see anything up there or underneath the bridge that would be of any concern regarding saving any lives. We'll keep you posted as we get more information. The objective right now appears to be keep people away from this collapsed structure, which is simply, as you stand near it, unbelievable to behold. It's unbelievable. A bridge this big just collapsed, but it did. Back to you.
Yeah, Ross, I can imagine what it looks like in person. Just watching it on that video is truly incredible. And that was our first pictures of actual first responders on the hillside there, looking down below at the base of where it's fallen, just to make sure there were no people there, because as Ross said, it's a creek, it's a walking trail. We assume it was no one walking under there at 6:45 this morning when this happened, but they did want to check.
Yeah, and I want to just pass this along. I was able to confirm through Pittsburgh Public Safety that search dogs are on site right now, as Ross was talking a little bit about that effort. So that is currently underway right now. Let's go to Megan Schiller, who has been on the side of the hill for us this morning. You have a much different vantage point, but something really to see there.
Heather, and as soon as I heard what you had just said, I was trying to locate those search dogs, but I unfortunately have not been able to see them just yet. But we were talking to some community members out here. And I talked to two people, one person who is a runner who said that he runs this trail all the time, and he was in a group text with his fellow runners this morning, and they said, hey, we're going to have to find a new route, and he had to come down here to see for himself. He described for me what it's like running down there. He said it's a nice flat path, a lot of runners and a lot of people on bikes often enjoying that trail. He said he can't believe it. He could have been underneath of it, and he just had to come here and see for himself. The other man that I interviewed is a retired Pittsburgh dentist who said he uses this bridge every single day to get through the park. He said there's often bumper to bumper traffic on it. You can feel the bridge shake. He wasn't alluding to anything structurally with it, but he was saying because of just how many people are on the bridge and using the bridge. So he had to come out here to see for himself because he just said that he couldn't believe it. And of all the years he's lived in Pittsburgh and used this bridge, he said on the day that the president is arriving to talk about bridges and infrastructure, for this to happen, he just had to be here in order to see it for himself. You're going to hear those interviews coming up a little momentarily. We just wrapped them up, and But I did want to just generalize what some of these people out here in the community are saying. A lot of people making the trek. It's about 15 minutes of a walk in the snow, no matter which trail you're coming down, the South Clayton Trail or the North Clayton Trail. So people are parking, they're walking in the freezing cold. It is snowing, and they're making the hike just to be able to get close to see this for themselves. Heather, Christine.
All right, Megan, thank you so much. Yeah, and we know that park rangers have asked people now to avoid the area. We know people want to see it. And if it's in your neighborhood in particular, you may be thinking, I can't believe this is happening in my backyard. But again, park rangers have requested through Pittsburgh Public Safety to avoid the area at all costs, please.
Right, exactly. And as Heather said as Megan said, from some of the people she spoke with, I can imagine the shock you have thinking, wow, I drive that bridge every day, as do 14,500 vehicles every day. So thankfully, everyone who was on there, it looks like it's going to be okay. We have Adam Brandoff on the phone now. He is with the Port Authority, a spokesperson. And Adam, thank you for joining us. Tell us what you have learned so far about what happened today.
Yeah, good morning. So at about 6:45 a.m., a 60-foot articulated bus, it was a 61B Braddock to Swissvale, was crossing the Fern Hollow Bridge when this collapse occurred. I understand that the bus was on a section of the bridge that collapsed. The section went down to about a 45-degree angle and then slid backward. It looks like the bus made contact with another section of the collapsed bridge, and that sort of stopped the slide. But there was the operator and two passengers on the vehicle when this occurred, and we're extremely thankful for the first responders who helped rescue all of those on board without any major injuries.
Adam, have you heard at all about their state of mind? Because, we are very thankful. And actually, right now, we are seeing some people on the side of the hill. It looks like some first responders as they're checking maybe the vehicles down below and searching that area. But have you heard of the state of mind of the operator and the passengers on board? I can only imagine how I would be feeling being on a bus or in a vehicle traveling along a bridge that collapsed.
I have not, but as you said, I can only imagine what was going through their minds. It would absolutely be a frightening experience.
And Adam, this is Christine Sorensen speaking now. Tell me, first of all, can you explain what is an articulated bridge? I'm sorry, an articulated bus?
Yeah, the buses that bend in the middle. They are 60 feet long as opposed to a 40-foot bus.
Okay. And do we know if there were more than only those three people? We understand just the driver and two passengers on the bus at the time, no one else?
No one else, that's correct.
Okay. And is that normal for this time of morning? Because I'm sure we're grateful there were not, wasn't a full bus.
Absolutely. So if the bus was heading outbound toward Braddock. Had the bus been heading inbound, it's very likely there would have been many more people heading into town at the time of day that this occurred. So it's obviously not a great incident, but the fact that it was headed outbound instead of inbound is a little bit of a silver lining.
We've heard about several now silver linings in all of this, the 2-hour delay being one of them for many schools, and the lack of traffic just based on the weather and people working from home more. So we've heard a lot of that sentiment being heard today. The operator of the bus, do you have any information on that individual?
I don't. I know that we've spoken with the operator. Obviously, they were shooken up, to say the least, and we'll be speaking with them as the day progresses.
All right, Adam, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a little bit of insight. And we're so glad that both the operator and the passengers on board were okay.
Same here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Again, you heard Adam Brandup. That's a 61B, 60-foot long articulated bus there that was on the bridge traveling outbound toward Braddock when the bridge collapsed. And what you can't see from this image right now are the other vehicles that were also on that bridge. Now down below at the collapse site in Frick Park. This is the Fern Hollow Bridge, runs across over Frick Park. And again, we've heard of these blessings almost. 2-hour delay. No school buses, you know, they wouldn't be out at that time. And so we got very fortunate that there weren't more people traveling on this bridge. We do know that there have been several traffic disruptions, though, as a lot of emergency responders headed to the scene and now more officials to survey the damage and what took place.
Right, and we've been looking at this live picture here of the bus and then you saw first responders going along that hillside, a steep hillside as it goes into Frick Park there. Again, we were told earlier that they were going to be sending people there, and we understand there's search dogs there as well, just double checking that there were no people who would have been down there, because we're told that's a very popular trail for people to walk and to run and to bike. So again, I guess grateful that it was this time of year, this early of the morning, where you wouldn't likely see too many people down there.
You know, I want to pass this. This could be a little bit of good news or just showing a little bit of progress in this situation since it developed about 6:45 this morning. I'm taking a look now at some of the traffic cameras in the area, and it looks like the on-ramp or exit ramp from the Parkway East heading outbound to Edgewood Swissvale has reopened. If you were traveling towards Regent Square, it looks like that has reopened to traffic. Maybe they are kind of loosening up the restrictions in that area just a little bit and trying to contain things a little bit more. And here you can see the map where this took place. It's actually on Forbes Avenue near South Braddock, and this is the Fern Hollow Bridge that collapsed about 6:45 this morning. Neighbors in the area reported hearing a loud boom and a shh almost, as we've heard from some of the neighbors in the area. Shook them, startled them, and then they came out to see what had taken place. And we've also been checking into the condition of this bridge. We heard from City Councilman Corey O'Connor, who said September 2021 was the last time that it was inspected. Some reports that we have found on PennDOT's website, though, indicate that at the time of their last inspection, poor condition.
Exactly. Poor condition for the structure. And this is one of many, in fact, 123 bridges in our area that are in poor condition because of the structure and because of the age and the wear and tear that we have here. And of course, we are the city of bridges. I mean, we have over 1,200 bridges in Allegheny County alone. So we all travel bridges virtually every day, I can imagine. I know I travel several every day. And you have to, just to get in and out of the city of Pittsburgh from many directions. So it is pretty scary to see something like this happen. Of course, it's not the first one in our area. A few years ago, we had the collapse at Route 30. That was just 2 years ago. Once again, reiterating the need for money to reinforce and to update and to improve the structure of these bridges. And that is one of the reasons that President Biden is coming today in really just about 2 hours. He should be here at the Allegheny County Airport, expected to arrive. He was already planned to be here to discuss the infrastructure bill, the $1 trillion bill, money being spent over 5 years for everything from roads, bridges, rails, clean drinking water, high-speed internet. All of these but the roads have been one of the highlights of that, of course, and we can see here why.
Andy Sheehan joined us maybe about 20 minutes ago with some breaking details that he was just getting about the possibility of President Biden actually visiting this site as part of his visit to Pittsburgh. That is still something that we are waiting to see if it will come to fruition. But as Andy reported, you know, what a better way, is there a better way to highlight the great need than to see what happens when our bridges and our roads are not in proper condition? There were people traveling on this bridge, and we could have seen fatalities this morning. We could have seen it. I mean, that's the scary part about this. We all travel on bridges every single day. We put our kids in the car. We go across the bridges every morning to take them to school, to get to work. So just really incredibly dangerous to see something like this happening, that it could have happened to any one of us.
Well, and we've heard people saying that this is such a popular bridge, really a major corridor and artery between Oakland and a lot of the eastern neighborhoods like Squirrel Hill and Point Breeze, and how sometimes this this bridge will be, you know, bumper to bumper cars. I mean, to think that that could have happened at a time like that is pretty incredible. That thankfully it looks like 4 cars and the 1 bus involved. Thankfully, it looks like that was all.
If you live in this area, we just want to kind of reiterate some information that we got earlier this morning. There was a gas line break at the time, a leak at the time of this collapse. That was isolated and quickly cut off very quickly. So within about an hour or so from the time of the collapse to the time that Peoples Gas was able to get on site and cut that gas off. They believed, our last report with John Shumway believed that very few individuals would be impacted by shutting off the gas there. But we know some incredibly dangerously cold temperatures are coming our way this weekend. And right now we want to go out to Bryant Reed. He is just now getting an interview with County Executive Rich Fitzgerald.
Important for him to see in person why he's here. Okay.
Hey, I'm with County Executive Rich Fitzgerald here, just asking me a few questions about any updates that you may know about the situation that's been going on with this bridge collapse here.
Well, you know, a little after 6:40 this morning, the bridge collapsed. It was Forbes Avenue, the Forbes Avenue connection. It connects Regent Square to Squirrel Hill. 4 or 5 vehicles, cars were on it, and a Port Authority bus. Fortunately, at this point, the injuries appear fairly minor or non-life-threatening, which is a very, very fortunate situation. But here in southwestern Pennsylvania, in the eastern suburbs, this is our second major bridge collapse in just a few years. Route 30 a couple of years ago. The good news is we've heard from the White House, we've heard from the governor's office. Secretary Buttigieg has called, Senator Casey. They're all en route here. Governor should be here actually fairly quickly. And then the president, we think, not only coming to Hazelwood today in Mill 19, we do think he's going to make a stop here today to see and observe what we're living under.
And we've been hearing about any of the searches and different types of searches and search dogs under the lower level. Is there anything that you can tell us about that? Any findings?
At this time, we haven't heard that there is anybody there, but they're obviously going to go through that operation, and hopefully nobody was under there. It is a very busy trail that people use all the time when they walk their dogs, they jog through Frick Park. As this Forbes Avenue overpass goes over the Frick Park in the 9 Mile Run area.
And we've been hearing a lot about timing with this. You know, how lucky was it that, this was not in a later part of the day?
That's exactly right. Had it been a half hour, an hour later, there would have been a lot more vehicles on that bridge, including could have been pedestrians, joggers. The entire bridge could have been much busier.
And what do we know about the bridge inspections here? They said that the last one that got done was September of 2021, but I mean, does this kind of I just drive home that maintenance needs to be done more often?
Well, we're going to take a look at that, and I think that's one of the things that happens after an occurrence like this. You start to see, best practices as far as inspections, as far as weight limits, all those type of things. I'm sure the engineering folks will be looking at that as this investigation goes forward.
And also kind of drives home, the reason why the president is coming today?
Absolutely. I mean, we know we need this. We know as an older industrial city with a lot of old bridges, a lot of old infrastructure, that we need this. And this president, to his credit, has been the first president in decades, Democrat or Republican, that has been able to get a major infrastructure investment in this country. And this just signifies, in a stark way, why it is needed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
How many vehicles are on the bridge?
That was County Executive Rich Fitzgerald joining us with a brief update on the bridge collapse, talking about why that bridge maintenance is so needed and why he has also pushed for the infrastructure deal to get passed, and why. And so that's just a little bit of what we are learning, and as well as the updates for this time being. Back to you.
All right, Brian, thank you. We've been hearing more and more about the searches taking place on the ground there, so I'm glad that he asked the county executive about that in particular. We were able to confirm a short time ago that through state assets, they were able to bring in some search dogs down on the ground. And, their fear really was to make sure that they accounted for everyone. Were there people down below walking or hiking? Could there have been somebody else that was in the vehicles that they didn't know about yet?
Exactly, and that's a live look there where we have seen some emergency crews walking up and down the hillside, checking underneath, and the dogs would, of course, be able to get to access and scent of areas where they can't reach, just to confirm, because we understand, again, road that goes under, but it's Frick Park and a creek and a popular walking trail, so they want to confirm that no one was killed or crushed underneath this collapse. Now, we want to go live to KDK's meteorologist Mary Hours, who's been looking into some of the background on this bridge. Mary, tell us what you've learned.
Yeah, so whenever you look at the National Bridge Inventory data, you see when the last inspections were. So what I'm seeing back in 2017, even though there was an inspection in 2021, the geometry appraisal was requiring high priority of correction action. And as you said, Christine, too, 14,500 traffic on average, and 7% of those are trucks. So even the recommended work was to fix the general structure deterioration and the strength, and that cost would be $1.5 million. So the structural appraisal said back in 2017 that it meets minimum tolerable limits to be left in place as it is. And think about this bridge. It is about 450 feet long, and even you can see that angle where things are dropped down. So this is very high traffic area. And even when you think about the bridges in poor condition, we have over 1,200 bridges and 123 of those are poor. So just reiterating a little bit of that information, but since 2011, this has been in poor condition.
Mary, thank you very much. And we are just now getting some word that the National Transportation Safety Board is sending a GO team. They're launching their GO team to the Pittsburgh Bridge collapse site. They will have this afternoon a board member on scene to check in on this situation. So that's just coming in just a few minutes ago.
Well, and it makes sense. I mean, this is, you rarely ever see this anywhere in the country, but for it to happen right here, of course, we are this city of bridges with so many bridges. The chance of it happening here more likely, I guess, than anywhere else. But this is a serious, serious incident. We can't have this kind of thing happening. We trust and rely on these bridges every day for our safety, and we have so many of them. And as Mary said, this is one of many that are in poor condition, and it's frightening to see what can happen. So it's very good to hear the NTSB is coming in, and I'm sure that they will be assessing, hopefully, some of the other bridges in our area as well.
Absolutely, Christine. We want to show you some more tweets that we've been getting in, and want to show you this one now from State Representative Dan Tranquil, who said, "I was out on the bridge this morning marveling that through human ingenuity, the work of quick thinking first responders and luck, nobody was killed in this catastrophic collapse. We should be depending on investment, not luck." And that really hits home, right? We know we may joke at the poor state of some of our roads and the potholes and that sort of thing that we all live through the winters and through the year. But when you see something like this, it really does hit home that luck doesn't help in a situation like this. And we did get lucky that nobody was killed in this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many leaders bringing this to the forefront and reminding us that this is why we need to invest in our infrastructure. The U.S. Transportation Secretary, Pete Buttigieg, has been following this morning, and he tweeted this, saying, "Closely monitoring the situation at Frick Park Bridge in Pittsburgh, which we know as the Fern Hollow Bridge, and grateful for first responders on the scene. Our department," that's the Department of Transportation, the U.S. National Department, along with PennDOT and local authorities, offering our support. U.S. Department of Transportation stands ready to assist.
And we've been hearing from a lot of people. We hope to check in with City Councilman Corey O'Connor in just a little bit. We heard a little bit from him earlier this morning. This is his district, and so we hope to get an update from him. Of course, he knows this bridge well. He travels this bridge, and we were hearing from him earlier. Taking another live look here as we are closely approaching 11 o'clock this morning, you can see a vehicle on its roof on the side of this hill after the bridge collapsed roughly 6:45, 6:50 this morning. And if we can pull out, you can just get the scope of the scene there. We have reporters spread out throughout the area. We're getting images in from all around this area, from on the ground and from each side of this collapse.
And if you are just joining us, because we are just coming up on the 11 o'clock hour, I'm Christine Sorensen with Heather Abraham, and we are bringing you breaking coverage of the massive catastrophic bridge collapse, the Fern Hollow Bridge in the Point Breeze area, which collapsed at about 6:45 this morning.
And multiple vehicles were on that bridge. A Port Authority bus was on that bridge as well, traveling there, going about their normal business, when all of a sudden, boom, the bridge collapsed. And what we have learned in the hours since is that thankfully there have been no reported fatalities. There were 10 injuries, all non-life-threatening. 3 individuals went to the hospital. 7 others received minor injuries, many treated and just looked at the scene by medics. What we've been able to learn from the fire chief, Daryl Jones, on the scene was some of those additional injuries were slips and falls as first responders were getting to the scene. We had a lot of heavy snow in the area at that time.
And this is the original image we saw, and you can see it was still dark at the time. That is the collapsed bridge. Really, it's shocking still to see. You can see it fell pretty much straight down. If you look at the top, that's the bus hanging there, and it was stopped by the other edge of the bridge. The people who were injured were 2 passengers and a driver on that bus, and they had to be extricated from that bridge using cables. And this is another look at the area where the bridge fell. This is a live look of where it still is. If you look closely, you can kind of see the red tone of that bridge. It's a little hard to see, but as we get closer, you can see the bridge there. They'd use cables and just a human hand-to-hand chain of people to get them out. All 3 of them are in fair condition at UPMC Presbyterian Hospital this morning.
We want to get out to Ross Gadati, who's been on site monitoring some of the things that are going on there down below at the collapse. And Ross, I know that you were talking when we last checked in with you about some of the search efforts that were going on. We'd heard earlier about drones that were being brought in and now search dogs. Okay. Trying to get back to Ross, and we will get back to him shortly here, but you can see just another vantage point of what's going on there. Emergency officials still on site assessing and evaluating what took place this morning, Christine.
Right, so they're standing at the edge of the bridge right before where it collapsed, and we do have reporters all angles of this and have since this happened this morning, as well as we're working on getting drone footage of this area. Let's go back to Ross now. We understand he's ready. Ross?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, little technical difficulties. Let's take a look again at the bridge, Fern Hollow Bridge behind me. As of right now, we had heard reports that there was a drone in action doing observation from above, as well as search dogs. I can tell you we did hear a drone a little earlier, but as for search dogs and heat signatures of anybody who may be under that bridge, we can't confirm that. We've not seen them, but understand we're on this side of the structure and we can't have any access to the other side. So it's entirely likely or possible that those individuals and those animals are still on scene attempting to find if, in fact, anybody is underneath the structure. Important to note that this structure only had a creek and a walking trail underneath it. It did not have automobile traffic or anything like that, which is a blessing in and of itself. And the fact that it happened at 6:45, well, there are certainly people who get out early and run, and given these conditions, that likely may have played a role in not so many people taking their normal morning exercise routine. There are only 4 vehicles on the structure at the time. Now, a couple factors investigators are going to look into, and this is based on other structure collapse we've had in western Pennsylvania after the last 20 years. They're going to see what the effect of age was, traffic, maintenance, salt, weather, and you have to remember something. We are dealing with a bridge that had its overall tonnage capacity reduced, one after another to accommodate vehicles, 7% of which I believe Mary mentioned are heavy trucks and buses. And they did that to enable the bridge to be used, but it just reached its failure point. And it will be interesting to see if the freeze and thaw we went through over the last 24 hours. Remember, it did get a little warm yesterday, and it was unbelievably cold. What, if any, role that may have played in further compromising the structure, resulting in this catastrophic collapse? And it is still amazing that no one was killed and people were injured. I think it was mentioned that most of the injuries were from slip and falls, which in and of itself, given the circumstances, I think most people will accept. But the investigation into this continues. There are or were some city paramedics down there a little bit earlier looking under the bridge, but I do not believe that they are on scene, at least on our side at this juncture. And we're running into an issue where people are starting to crawl through the woods down into Fern Hollow. Some of them are on some pretty treacherous terrain, so they're being warned and asked by city officials, don't come looking here because this is not necessarily a safe place to get to in the first place. But that is what we're dealing with right now. Just Mary gave a great synopsis of what the situation with this bridge is, and the fact that it would cost, I believe, $1.5 million to do rudimentary repairs. One can't help but wonder how much it will cost now to do a complete bridge replacement. That's all from here. I'm down in Fern Hollow, right beside the remnants of the Fern Hollow Bridge. Back to you.
Really incredible to see. And Russ, thank you for bringing us up to speed there on your side of things there. We have been checking in with plenty of people, getting some updates as to what's happened this morning. About 6:45 is when the Fern Hollow Bridge collapsed.
Yeah, and again, 10 people were injured, 3 in the hospital with injuries. Fair condition, we understand, but no one with life-threatening injuries. And we are still live on the scene. You can see this is a look at one end of the bridge. We have been hearing from many local leaders this morning saying they are grateful for the first responders who got there and were able to rescue and extricate those 3 people from the bus, get everyone else out safely from the other 3 or 4 vehicles that were part of the collapse, and you saw one there on the hillside. Wow. And again, grateful that we don't have any fatalities this morning.
Yeah, that was not reported this morning, so that's the good news, is that no fatalities reported. We have heard about those injuries, but all non-life threatening, with just 3 individuals going to the hospital. We want to go back to Andy Sheehan because, Andy, you received some information earlier this morning pertaining to the president's visit to Pittsburgh, which is scheduled to happen today.
Well, yes, President Biden is scheduled to come here to Pittsburgh to talk about the passage of the infrastructure bill, and this is certainly, the one prime example of why the president feels this bill is necessary. It has passed. The information I've gotten from County Executive Rich Fitzgerald is that the White House is interested in coming to the scene. He was scheduled to go to Hazelwood Green this morning, to Mill 19, to talk about the bill. But County Executive Fitzgerald tells me that the president will try to get here either before that visit or after, and drive home the point that this bill is absolutely necessary. Fitzgerald also told me that he has been on the phone with the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, that the federal government has pledged any and all support to the city and the county to assist in this effort, both the cleanup and then the funding of trying to get a replacement bridge. Have been talking to officials on the scene here. They continue to be amazed that there was no serious injuries in this bridge collapse, that the people that fell sustained only minor injuries, but then all sort of saying, had this happened a half hour later, would have been in the middle of rush hour, there would have been at least 20 cars on that bridge, as it is a major artery, and there certainly would have been fatalities. Back to you guys.
All right, Andy, thank you.
Andy, before you go real quick, can you just tell me, I know you live not too far from this area, what is it like underneath, and how busy is that bridge on a regular basis?
It's extremely busy, and during rush hour, which would have been starting about a half hour after this collapse, it would have been packed. This Forbes Avenue is the alternate route for people coming into the city from the eastern suburbs. If they do not want to go through the Squirrel Hill tunnels, they get off at the Edgewood exit. They come down Braddock Avenue and would pass over that bridge, and they would come onto Forbes, go into Squirrel Hill, and take, maybe Shady Avenue. We're right here at Dallas. They would go down to Fifth Avenue. So it is packed every morning and every evening. That bus had only 2 passengers in it, and the bus driver himself. That was an outbound bus, so it wasn't coming in. It wasn't a commuter bus. Otherwise, there would have been a lot of people on that bus. The bridge itself spans Frick Park, and underneath the bridge is a trail. And frankly, I run on that trail all the time. It's very pretty, and it's quite a distance down from the bridge. The bridge is probably, I would say, 150 feet
above that trail. And on a normal day, especially on a spring day, runners, walkers, they enjoy that trail. They would go on, you run underneath the bridge, and there would have been a problem. You know, those trails, as I know from personal experience now, these trails are all icy, and it's very difficult to run or walk on them right now. But yeah, you know, any given day, had this happened in the spring, there could very conceivably have been injuries on the ground.
You toss. All right, Andy, thank you so much for your personal experience. That's always helps explain what that's like.
You know, I want to point this out because I'm trying to multitask here and scroll through Twitter and look for updates, and just seeing a tweet here from someone who says, I'm shaken about this Frick Park bridge collapse today, and I bet I'm not alone. The main reason, as a Western Pennsylvanian, just about every single time I get in a car, I go over at least one bridge. Today is a very uneasy feeling. And that's kind of what we've been talking about, Christine, is that we know here in Western Pennsylvania, in Allegheny County, how many bridges there are, and not knowing the condition of a bridge that you're traveling on and taking it for granted, like these drivers did today. Right now, we want to get out to Amy Wattis. She joins us live at UPMC Presbyterian Hospital, where we know at least 3 individuals went.
Heather, yet 3 people taken here to UPMC Presbyterian Hospital. UPMC is saying all 3 in fair condition. Now, we do know from earlier reports, 10 people injured total, all non-life-threatening injuries. So 3 of those folks here at Presbyterian. I did just speak to, for some clarification, the spokesperson of the Allegheny County Port Authority, and he tells me that one of the people from the bus, they didn't go to the hospital after they were removed from the bus on the bridge, but then they were complaining of some injuries and were then taken to the hospital about 2 hours later. So trying to confirm with UPMC if that person specifically is one of those 3 here at Presby. Again, we just know at this point 3 people in fair condition. Still no further updates from UPMC Presbyterian. We're going to try to find out more from the spokesperson here on that specific person about their injuries and if they are one of those 3 here at the hospital. So we're going to continue to monitor this situation for you out here in Oakland, as it's a very fluid situation. But thankfully, we don't know of any fatalities, just non-life-threatening injuries, but 3 in fair condition here at Presby in Oakland. Heather and Christine.
All right, Amy. Yes, interesting information to learn that they didn't go immediately there, that it was just a little bit later. They were not feeling so good, excuse me, which you do hear sometimes when people are in, say, a general car accident.
Delayed trauma almost, that you feel fine from the energy of what just happened and then later feeling the effects of it. We heard around 8:30 this morning was our last update from the fire department chief, Daryl Jones, who spoke about the rescue and what took place this morning. So let's listen into what he had to say this morning.
EMS Bureau set up for rescue. They have the heavy rescue units here. The technicians rappelled down using ropes to go down over the side. They helped the firefighters that were here initially on scene, also did like a daisy chain with hands, just grabbing people and pulling them up. So it was a physical rescue, most of them are. But we have some highly skilled and highly trained professionals on the job here. Pittsburgh is lucky in that respect. So it was handled as best as it could be handled.
Yeah, hearing there. I mean, really incredible when he was talking about hand to hand trying to get to these people on the bus. And we spoke with Adam Brandoff from the Port Authority just a short time ago. And he even spoke about, and what you're seeing right now, when the bridge collapsed and buckled, that bus was slipping back. And that buckling of the bridge actually kept it from going back even farther.
Right, you can see it right there. It's kind of buttressed right up there and stopped against where part of the bridge came up and stopped it from going any further. And again, we know that the 3 people, or at least 2 of the 3 people in the hospital, or we know that all 3 from the hospital were in that bus, a driver and 2 passengers. Thankful that there weren't more at the time. This was heading outbound, not inbound, which would have likely been a lot more people heading toward town to head to work.
Yeah, and we want to get out to Megan Schiller. Megan Schiller has been on the ground for us. She has been covering what's going on down below, and we have been able to see more officials gathering at the site. We think evaluating and assessing what took place this morning. We also know that the National Transportation Safety Safety Board has said that they are launching their GO team to the collapse site, hoping to arrive sometime this afternoon. I don't know if we can go to Megan now, if she is available.
All right.
Okay, we are still standing by and waiting to talk with Megan Schiller.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can. Yes. Hi, Megan.
With the cold weather, the microphone keeps going in and out. The batteries are not a fan of the temperatures, but I wanted to show you some of the people that have been coming up to the police line. This is what it looks like on every side of the police tape. People that are out here with their cameras. We've seen people on skis, people snowshoeing with their dogs, with their drones, trying to get a vantage point. A lot of people really taking their lives in their hands, scaling down this ravine. They have this blocked off right here. It's very slippery because of the snow. People have been still going over the police line to go down these trails that Andy Sheen was talking about. This is very popular with runners and people with dogs. There's a dog park down below. Yeah, we have seen now the first people down below from our vantage point. Heather, you had been mentioning earlier about how they were going to bring some search teams out here, some canines, just to make sure that there wasn't anyone underneath on the trail when this came down. So I have seen a lot of people now walking down there, much more than in the past hour or so. But we're up above right where the road gave way, and there are about 5 or so public safety officials and police that have been kind of manning the edge, essentially, since we arrived. It does seem like on the opposite side, which is where Bryant Reed and some of the other reporters are, that is where a lot of the officials are that are giving the statement. So we're on the park side in Frick Park, right along the trail. And despite the fact that the park rangers have asked for people to stop coming and trying to get even deeper into the park and go down past the police line, people are doing it anyway. So they're trying to keep people safe out here. But as for what's happening at the base of the collapse, where some of the cars are, nothing happening. No one there right now. So it does seem like just to the left and to the right of the collapse, we're seeing some people walking up and approaching and trying to make sure that there's nothing down there to report. No updates yet from Pittsburgh Public Safety, but we're continuing to monitor. Heather, Christine?
Megan, thank you so much from your vantage point there and that reporting.
Yes, and we're going to go back now to Bryant Reed, one of the first reporters on the scene, who joins us now live with City Councilman Corey O'Connor. Bryant and Corey.
Yeah, excuse me, Pittsburgh City Councilman Corey O'Connor with me. What do we know about some of his efforts? We heard that, there may have been heat signatures down under there. So what can you tell us?
So, I mean, obviously the rescue effort at the beginning of this morning was amazing. For police, fire, EMS to get here on site, for our employees to form a chain and get people out of there, and luckily nobody was injured. I mean, there were injuries, but no fatal injuries. So the heat seekers, there were some drones that flew over just to double check because, we obviously saw people in their cars, but underneath there's a walking trail. Unfortunately, we've had some people live down there or stay overnight sometimes. So that was the precaution with the heat-seeking drones, just to make sure that nobody was under there. To our knowledge right now, nobody was under there, thankfully. I think we got very lucky today that we didn't have any serious injuries.
And search and rescue teams from the state just now showing up to the scene to do what they need to do. What more will they be doing that hasn't already been done?
So obviously search and rescue will go underneath, examine it, and then at this point it's going to be a matter of cleanup. We were very lucky, nothing happened, but you also have to be very cautious of how you're doing this cleanup. I mean, it's a very steep hill. A lot of people that know the area, they went right down a cliff, basically. And it's, again, a credit. People going down there, slipping, sliding, it's soaking wet, it's icy out here. And for them to do that, it was pretty spectacular. So Pennsylvania's going to be here for a while. We talked to PennDOT and state officials. They got this support coming here. This is going to be a very long process, and this is not going away anytime soon.
And we've been doing our own bridge research about this bridge here, and just a quick question that you may or may not know: do we know if the bus exceeded the weight limit of that bridge?
I do not know. I believe the tonnage was about 26. If I'm right, I could be a little off on that, but I do know it was inspected in the fall. Again, a lot of our bridges get poor reviews. There's so many bridges in the city of Pittsburgh. There were some steel beams that were replaced a couple of years ago. We just, got the inspection done in September, but we need money. I mean, to do this, that's a huge impact on all of us. We just replaced the Greenfield Bridge a few years back. It's just the cost of maintaining these bridges in a city of bridges is a lot, and we try to keep up as best we can. We're going to go back, see if we have to bump up the standards on these inspections, do different things like that internally, whether those are federal or state guidelines, but that's what we have to do.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
I really
All right,
appreciate
thank
you for talking
guys.
to us.
Yeah, thanks for being here. All right, take care.
All right, Pittsburgh City Council member Corey O'Connor just talking to us there as we see the Pennsylvania urban search and rescue teams are just now coming on scene. As a matter of fact, Senator Costa also just arrived to the scene. He's behind the tape now, so not able to get to him, but we will be trying to get to him, see if he has a few words to say and any information that he could give us on this bridge collapse here. Heather and Christine.
You know, I have to tell you, I have never seen a truck like that arriving at a scene, that big trailer for the Pennsylvania Urban Search and Rescue.
Right, exactly. I've not seen that either. I'm gathering it's to have to do with maybe those folks who are still, again, looking underneath to make sure, as Corey O'Connor referenced there, the councilman, that, you know, a lot of people run, but he also referenced people sometimes living there. I'm assuming people who are homeless may camp out under the bridge as some form of safety. So maybe they are double checking that there were no people living or running under there with both the dogs and the drones and the heat seeking technologies. But again, we just saw that massive tractor trailer with Pennsylvania Urban Search and Rescue there. And we understand, yes, more federal, the NTSB has also gotten their GO team on the way here because this is a major catastrophic bridge collapse.
Yeah, I'm just looking this up very quickly, and it looks like the Pennsylvania Urban Search and Rescue System is actually through PEMA, so this is something that they assist in, I guess, if needed be, and can go to locations such as this if they're called in. We want to go back out to Ross Gadati, and Ross, you're talking to some more folks, just as we are getting word from Pittsburgh Public Safety that they will be closing Frick Park.
Yeah, I can imagine they will. And there are a lot of people who are coming down, who are actually coming down the hills, and that's not the best idea. But there are a lot of people exercising, including Matt Pascal here, who's doing some cross-country skiing. Matt, you know, for a lot of people who've never been here, this isn't a terribly familiar structure or scene. You have seen it before. You live nearby. What are your impressions?
I live right in the neighborhood next to us, and that is our corridor to Squirrel Hill, to town, to Oakland. It's where our kids' school is. We cross over this bridge many, many times daily between my wife and I. We run across it, we bike across it, we even sometimes ski across it, and of course we drive across it.
But having
and under.
That's what I was curious about. You've gone down and used the trail underneath.
That's the main trail in Frick Park underneath it. It's called Tranquil Trail.
You were talking before about how life and tragedy are sometimes seconds or hours away. If this would have happened at a different time.
Yeah, if this had happened during rush hour last night, there's a red light at the end of Forbes Avenue, just maybe a couple hundred yards down, and so there would have been a couple hundred cars just idling on the bridge, waiting for the light to turn.
You know, though, the big question is, you know this bridge, you know the condition of the bridge. I don't imagine you're terribly surprised that something bad happened, but this?
I didn't know about this particular bridge. I know we have an infrastructure problem in general. I hope President Biden comes and takes a look since he happens to be in town today. But yeah, maybe I shouldn't be surprised, but it's kind of shocking to sit here and look at that bridge down in the forest.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. It'll be interesting to see when the replacement comes in and so forth and how long that's going to take. But I would imagine, like everybody, you're just thankful no one got hurt.
Yes, it's going to give us some detours and some traffic. Everybody seems to be okay, which is like a miracle. But, you know, let's hope we get a new bridge in the next 6 months. In the next year, I can't even guess how long it takes.
Yeah, it does take time. Maybe it'll be expedited given the nature of this particular collapse. Thank you very much, sir. Of
course.
Enjoy the rest of your day and be safe. All right, thanks a lot, man. That's our friend Matt, who does some cross-country skiing. We're going to walk back over here. If you can follow me, I'll stay with the camera right there. You can see the situation. Now, you mentioned the urban rescue team. Now, that might not necessarily be, now keep in mind, this is conjecture, but this has happened in the past. When you bring rescue teams and tactical rescue teams like that, it might not necessarily be to recover anybody, because right now there are no indications that anybody needs recovered. But when you're dealing with something like this, or inspection, or you've got to get people down there, there is always the chance you may end up having to rescue the rescuer. So that all is coming into play right now. They will eventually coordinate some kind of plan to do a better inspection on this, but you have to have the safety assets nearby in the event the individuals doing the inspections could find themselves in a situation where they need extricated, and hopefully that will not happen. But in this particular situation, you're going to bring all assets you have right now to begin the process of figuring out what happened here. But one thing we don't have to figure out, and we've made it very clear, and it bears repeating given the nature of this particular collapse, we don't have to worry about anybody being dead, at least that as we understand it right now from officials, and that in and of itself is simply remarkable. Back to you.
All right, Ross, thank you so much for that report there and talking with the skier who knows that park.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's really scary when you think you've driven over that, as they said, run over it, walked over it, skied over it, and under it, that no one was seriously injured or died. Let's go now to what we heard earlier from Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, of course, is from the Braddock area, travels that bridge, said he just traveled it yesterday. What he has to say about this.
The fact that this could have been much worse, we were fortunate that there was a public school delay and the traffic could have been much more pronounced. So from my perspective, I hope it's a wake-up call to the nation that we need to make these critical infrastructure investments and make sure that everyone is afforded the ability to have a safe drive to work. It's just like the fact that there were vehicles on that. I'm just grateful nobody was killed.
Yeah, that's kind of what we've heard over and over again this morning from various people, from neighbors we've talked to, from public safety on the scene there, from officials who have been talking this morning. How lucky that no one was killed in this bridge collapse. And we can see a large gathering now of people there at the site of this bridge collapse. We know the National Transportation Safety Board is sending their GO team. And just in the last couple of minutes, when we saw Bryant wrapping up his live shot after talking with City Councilman Corey O'Connor, we saw the Pennsylvania Urban Search and Rescue Team arrive with a large trailer. And what we've been telling you is that they wanted to make sure in this collapse site underneath, because Frick Park is often very busy with people who are hiking and running and walking, and of course other people who were driving on the bridge. They want to make sure that there was no one else there. There's no one else unaccounted for at this collapse site. So the Pennsylvania Urban Search and Rescue has been called in. We also know that search dogs were also called in. A drone was being used earlier this morning as well, trying to look over this, possibly to detect, just to make sure that no one was there. 3 to 4, possibly 5 vehicles on the bridge at the time, along with a Port Authority bus that was also on the bridge. We have heard a lot about that bus in particular and the situation it was in. We have yet to really learn about the people inside the other vehicles, though, the cars that were traveling on there. How many people were inside those vehicles? What we do know, 10 people with reported injuries. 3 people went to the hospital. What you're seeing right now is a vehicle that is on its roof on the hillside. It's unclear based on what we're seeing now. Did it drive off of the side of the road once the bridge collapsed? As it was collapsing, was it on the bridge? We don't know the trauma that was impacted to the driver who was in that vehicle in particular. You can see through the trees and through the snow the red bus there. This is a large bus, a 60-foot long bus, as we heard from Adam Brandoff from the Port Authority. It was crossing the Fern Hollow Bridge. This is the 61B around 6:45 this morning with other traffic. Went down at like a 45-degree angle, says Mr. Brandoff. Another section of the bridge, as you can see there, buckled up and actually stopped it as it was sliding backwards down the collapsed bridge. An operator and 2 passengers were on board that bus. When we last spoke with the Port Authority, they had yet to speak with the individuals on the bus, other than knowing they had non-life-threatening injuries and that they were taken to the hospital. This was heading outbound toward Braddock, and when we heard from the Port Authority, they said had it been going inbound, it probably would have been a much more crowded bus. Police and the fire department quickly arrived and ran to the rescue, helping to assist those people, those 3 individuals off the bus using ropes, and then going hand to hand, reaching down into the bus to get those individuals off. And luckily, we have not seen that bus budge or move since we have been on the air with this morning. As for those other vehicles, again, we do not have any information. Were there any children in those vehicles? How many adults were in the vehicles? We don't have that information just yet. And search crews are still looking around to make sure that there were no other individuals that are unaccounted for that they perhaps didn't know were there to begin with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's unbelievable when you look at that there were about 4 cars in that bus and that there weren't more people who could have been on that span. As we understand, a lot of times the bridge is completely packed, car to car. There's a light at the end and people will be stopped on it. So grateful that it happened this time of morning when there weren't more people on. There was a school delay. In fact, some of Pittsburgh public schools have since gone remote in part because of the snow, but also because of this accident and challenges getting kids to and from school. We're looking at one of the vehicles that was on the bus upside down on the side of the hillside. You can see that there, turned upside down. Amazing, again, that these people were all okay from this accident with what looks like terrifying, what a terrifying ordeal.
Absolutely. We do want to remind you, too, if you live in this area or use Frick Park for enjoyment, we heard from Pittsburgh Public Safety about 15 minutes ago or so that Frick Park is being closed at this time for safety reasons. Public Safety will advise when it has reopened. So as of right now, Frick Park is closed. They do not want people gathering at the site as they are still trying to work and assess and evaluate what took place this morning. Hearing from some other people, not officials, but just ordinary people who live in this area, who just cross bridges, for instance, how terrifying it is just to think of the safety of each individual bridge that we all cross over every day, that we take for granted that it's safe and it's up to standards, it's up to code. City Councilman Corey O'Connor speaking just a short time ago. Is this something that we have to look into? What are our baselines here to allow people to continue to cross these bridges? If it's in poor condition, does that mean we close these bridges and restrict traffic to them?
Right, because we know from the 2017 report that we've been able to research that it was rated in poor condition. Many of the structural areas were considered poor. It was deteriorating. It was in need of help. It was in need. It actually was said it was prioritized as one that needed to be fixed soon, with over $1 million in repairs. But clearly we have a lot of bridges that are in poor condition. In fact, 123 in Allegheny County alone are rated as poor condition. So a lot of these are in need of some help, and that is something that a lot of people, a lot of these local leaders, state leaders, national leaders are pointing to, saying this should not happen. We need to invest in our infrastructure to make sure that passengers and people are safe going over our bridges. And as we know here in Pittsburgh, we go over bridges all the time. We are the city of bridges. We have 1,290 bridges in Allegheny County alone, and many, many more outside the area with all of our rivers and all of our hills. We've heard from U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg saying this is why we need to invest in infrastructure. Right now, the assessment is going on up above and below. We know the NTSB, that's the National Transportation Safety Board, has sent its GO team here to assist in the recovery, the investigation, what happened that caused this collapse. We know that the Pennsylvania Urban Search and Rescue Team is here. We saw their big trailer here, and they are going to be assessing both could there be anyone underneath, because we heard Councilman Corey O'Connor say that a lot of people walk and run under there. I know we've heard several people say that they are regular runners under there. And he also said that sometimes homeless people will camp out and live under there. So there, you can see a little bit of yellow down there with some of the individuals working to see, you know, if there's anyone possibly trapped under there. They also have dogs and drones and heat-seeking devices checking on that.
We have also heard from a lot of officials who are weighing in on what happened this morning. We want to get now to Governor Tom Wolf, who tweeted earlier this morning about the situation here this morning. We know the Lieutenant Governor is on site, as we've heard from him, and he spoke earlier this morning as well. But if we can, we do have this tweet from Governor Tom Wolf, who says, "We are monitoring the situation in Pittsburgh and prepared to provide support as needed. Pittsburgh residents, please stay safe and continue to avoid the area." So that coming in earlier this morning, about 3 hours ago, he tweeted that.
Yeah, and we've been getting information and tweets, of course, from a lot of local leaders and legislators, including Jen Psaki, who is the press secretary for the president. She tweeted that the president has been following this morning and that the president is still planning to come in. And now, of course, he already planned to come in. He is hoping, and they're efforting to try to get him to the scene of this either before or after his planned appearance in Hazelwood, where he was scheduled already to appear to talk about his infrastructure bill, or Infrastructure Act, I guess I should say. It's been passed into law, over $1 trillion going to infrastructure. But here's what Jen Psaki said. She said, the president is grateful to the first responders who rushed to assist the drivers who were on the bridge at the time. The president will proceed with the trip as planned for today and will stay in touch with officials on the ground about additional assistance that we can provide.
All right, and we do know that the president is scheduled to leave D.C. very soon. He will be arriving here in Pittsburgh shortly after that. His scheduled arrival time was 12:30, but we know that that is going to be a little bit later, that his departure was pushed back a little ways. His original plan was to arrive at 12:30 and then head to Hazelwood to Mill 19, where he was and will still talk about infrastructure and bringing dollars to help with bridges, with roads, with locks and dams. And we can see the need here this morning to make some crucial repairs across the area. We heard that this particular stretch with the collapse could take years to fix. So this is something we are continuing to monitor, the president's departure from D.C. and heading to Pittsburgh. We will keep you posted on that. We were getting word earlier this morning that it is not a definite, but there is a possibility that he could be coming to the site of this collapse. Andy Sheehan reported that a couple of hours ago. We are still waiting on confirmation from the White House press secretary or from the White House just in general that that could in fact happen this morning. But again, we have been looking at this scene for quite some time, and throughout the morning hours, one thing that has developed is that we have seen more and more snow come down. So we want to bring in KDKA's Mary Hours to help us understand this situation a little bit more, because as they're searching, as they're looking, evaluating, they're also dealing with this other element and the cold.
Yeah, so we have this cold front that's moving through, and actually looking at radar, there's another band that's going to be moving through. So they're going to be down there clearing out things while that snow is coming down. And there wasn't much in Allegheny County, about an inch of snow reported in the past 24 hours, a little bit heavier, about 2 inches or so for places into Washington and even Westmoreland, even Fayette, a couple of inches. But we still have one more band that's going to sweep through here. So when you look at our satellite and radar, that cold front is slicing through the region, but now starting to see that snow into northern parts of Allegheny County and southern parts of Butler County. So once this band moves out, then things will be quiet for the rest of the day, but we're also just going to see those temperatures drop. So just a few snow totals, again, ranging from about 1 to 2 inches. New Stanton, Westmoreland County, about 2 inches, but places there in Westmoreland, even Fayette, even a little bit in Allegheny County, we could pick up another inch or less as this band moves in. So right now, it's very tough to see downtown, 28 degrees, and a lot of those roadways are just very wet. So just be careful out there on the roads. They are treated, so a lot of that snow, again, is just going to accumulate about another inch or so, but still just mostly wet roadways, and you'll see that on the grassy surfaces. Snow showers for areas north, and temperatures are dropping for places like Franklin. You could even see places in Youngstown, low 20s, but we're still right around that 30-degree mark in Butler, Morgantown, Latrobe, Washington with those light snow showers. So by tomorrow morning, looking for a refreeze because temperatures drop back down to the single digits. It's going to be much colder by tomorrow morning. We're also going to be dealing with sub-zero wind chills, so the risk for frostbite, it is going to be high, especially for Saturday with wind chills below zero, and then even there for Sunday. So just looking at your 7-day forecast, we are not done with those below zero temperatures. Sunday morning looks like we're going to drop to 2 below, but also Saturday our highs are only in the teens. But by the end of the week, it's looking a lot better. There's going to be a thaw, so 34 on Monday. We're in the 40s on Tuesday, and then the thaw starts for the end of the week. Even though Thursday is near 40, we do have some rain showers, so you're getting melting along with some rain showers. Heather.
All right, Mary, thank you for that update on that. We do want to show you this live image, a live video right now at Air Force One at Joint Base Andrews, preparing to head here to Pittsburgh for a planned trip. President Biden speaking about his administration's feat of trying to get a $1 trillion infrastructure bill signed into law.
Yes, and he will be here about 12:30 is what we're expecting. He had planned to be here in Hazelwood to talk about his infrastructure plan, where money over $1 trillion will go toward bridges, rails, roads, clean drinking water, high-speed internet, among many other things. This is over $1 trillion spread out over the next 5 years, but nothing could point more to the need for this than what happened this morning. And we understand that the president's people are trying to work to be able to get him to come to the scene of the bridge collapse, either before or after his appearance today at the Mill 19, which is in Hazelwood, which is where he was originally planned to go. You can imagine anywhere the president goes, it is a major structural, concern with his safety and security, and then you add, of course, all of the resources going to this event, and it's a lot of logistical things that they are trying to work out. But the president has indicated he would like to go to see firsthand for himself this bridge collapse, which is now, word is reaching the country of what a disaster this is and what a catastrophe, and how important it is that we do support our bridges and make sure that they are safe for all of us to drive over. Heather.
And we are just now hearing that Mayor Ed Gainey just spoke with the president, and we want to pull up a tweet that he put out just a short time ago, and you can see a picture of Mayor Gainey as well. I just got off the phone with President Biden. Thank you, President Biden, for your support as we address the Fern Hollow Bridge collapse. I look forward to seeing you soon. We do want to point out that the president's expected departure was pushed back a little bit. So while we expected him to arrive in Pittsburgh around 12:30, that is now delayed. And as Christine mentioned, there has been an effort on behalf of the county and the city to get the president to come to the site of the Fern Hollow Bridge collapse, where crews remain this morning. We did see the Pennsylvania Urban Search and Rescue Team arrive there on scene with a very large trailer arriving within the last half hour or so. This is something that is run through PEMA, and something that they do. It can be a team as small as 6. It can be a little bit larger than that as well. Also, just getting a statement in from UPMC on the bridge collapse and the patient intake that they've had. This is at 11:32. As of 11:32, UPMC Presbyterian has received 3 adult patients and 1 adult patient at UPMC Shadyside related to the reported bridge collapse in Frick Park. All are determined to be in fair condition. We will update with any new information as necessary. And Christine, that's something that we had been hearing since the onset of injuries being reported, that the conditions of those folks were in fair condition, non-life-threatening injuries. We don't know exactly what those injuries are, but certainly some good news to hear that. In fact, Amy Wattis, who is at UPMC hospitals, was saying that some of them actually felt okay for the first couple hours after being extricated from that bus. You can imagine how harrowing that would have been. They had rescuers rappelling down the side of the bridge collapse to get to the bus, to pull them out of the bus on ropes, as well as a daisy chain of people hand to hand, making sure that they got out okay. But a couple hours later, some of them chose to go to the hospital because they were then feeling the effects of this crash. As you can imagine, the bus crashing down, it looks like it landed onto one end of the bridge that had kind of buttressed up against the end of the bridge, which thankfully stopped it from falling even further. Yeah, and what a scene there. And things have certainly calmed down in the last several hours once they were able to rope this off. Again, a reminder, Frick Park is closed, but you can see the site there, and it looks like we have some more officials gathering there at the scene, trying to assess and evaluate the situation there. One thing that is still unknown, and again, we have the Pennsylvania Urban Search and Rescue Team on scene there, but we don't know the extent of that search, if there was anything that alerted them to bring in this search team, to bring in the search dogs, to call in the drone. We understand the injuries that have been accounted for, but are there others that they are questioning if they have been accounted for or not, or was there any report that somebody could be underneath the bridge at the time of the collapse? It's something they are taking very seriously, though, as we can see on scene, as there are still a lot of people Let's go to Bryant Reed. He was one of the first reporters on the scene. Bryant, you've been doing a fantastic job giving us kind of the pulse of the neighborhood there, the things that people have heard and felt and seen with their own eyes. What are you hearing now?
Well, right now I'm actually with Senator Jay Costa, who is actually and was a part of this neighborhood once upon a time ago, living on the other side of the bridge. Now, you were just telling me about your personal experience driving up and down this. So, you know, what is it like for you to be able to see this bridge down and out?
Oh, it's stunning to me, and we're very fortunate that no one was seriously injured. That's but for the grace of God, this could have been a pretty nasty experience here. So we're fortunate. You know, it's surprising. It's, you know, the number of bridges here in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County that need repairs. This was really not one of them on the list, quite frankly, like the Commercial Street Bridge, for example. So we're surprised that it happened, but you know, the response of the emergency responders has been outstanding, and being able to reach down and get the folks rappelled down the hillside, and everyone has been relatively safe and secure, and that's the most important thing right now. Now we go into the rebuild phase, working, you know, speaking with PennDOT quite a bit. I spoke with the Secretary of Transportation earlier today. They pledged their support. The district engineers pledged her support as well, to be able to help manage what needs to take place here. So they're here as well. So, you know, we had a similar incident on Route 30 a while back when we had the landslide. Folks working together, local government officials and state, providing resources, providing support and all that. That's going to make a major difference getting this up and running again.
Okay. So, you know, there's a phrase, you know, better late than never. However, for this bridge, it was a little too late. So does that mean now that things are going to be sped up in terms of bridge maintenance when it comes to the city?
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we have infrastructure resources coming from the federal government, which I think is going to be important to allow us to continue to do the bridge assessments. You know, one of the things I learned is we're trying to get the cranes in the like here for this site. Some of the streets have weight restrictions that don't permit the trucks to come through, so it's delaying the folks' horizon here along those lines. But at the end of the day, we got to go back and do more assessments, and I think this will prompt us to be able to do that. There was an inspection that was done in September. I've not seen firsthand the inspection report, so we'll see what that had told us. But I do think, though, you're going to likely see, I would imagine, in the city of Pittsburgh, an effort to try to do additional assessments on all the bridges around the area to prevent things like this from happening again.
Do you think that this is something that you'll go back to the state capitol to and just say, hey, this is why we need more funding, and start fighting for more repairs and road maintenance and things of that nature?
Oh, there's no question. This is something that we've been talking about for quite a while. The federal government has done it, but we also have a state revenues transportation revenues issue here in Pennsylvania that we have to address as well. We have a shortfall in resources now coming from the Turnpike to PennDOT and from mass transit. So we have a major transportation conversation for the sustainable transportation things along those lines that we need to address in Harrisburg. We've had our head in the sand for a number of years now. Since we did Act 89 a number of years ago, we did about $2.5 billion, but the need was like $6 billion, and that need has grown. The federal government's going to come in and help us with some things, but it's not enough to be able to sustain what we need to do, not just in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, but across the whole Commonwealth. So we have work to do in that space.
Okay. Senator Costa, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the chance to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much, guys.
That was Senator Jay Costa joining us at this scene. You know, more and more officials and response crews just keep on coming to survey the damage and to, you know, fix what they can and do repairs, look for anything that they may deem necessary. So we'll keep finding those people to talk to and bring you the latest information and updates from all fronts. Back to you.
All right, Bryant, thank you so much for that. And hearing from him, very important interview.
Yes, and let's go live now to KDKA's Amy Wattis, who is outside UPMC hospitals. Amy, tell us what you've learned.
Well, Christine and Heather, we just got an update from UPMC, and they tell us, again, as we've been reporting for the past few hours, 3 people in fair condition here at Presby, but now we're learning a fourth person was taken to UPMC Shady Side, also in fair condition. These are people all involved in this bridge collapse in some way. Now, speaking with the spokesperson with the Port Authority, I asked him over the phone a short time ago, I asked him if any of those folks on that bus that you saw in the video involved in this collapse were ones taken to the hospital. He said none of those people were taken immediately to hospitals, but one of those people did report about 2 hours later that they were dealing with some injuries. They were actually on a bus in downtown Pittsburgh when they started complaining of those injuries and then taken to a hospital. We don't know if that person was the one who's now at Shady Side, because now we're reporting 4 people are in hospitals here within the UPMC health system, but again, 3 in fair condition here at Presby. We've got 1 over at UPMC's Shadyside Hospital now in fair condition. So we are still trying to get more from UPMC. That's all the UPMC is really going to tell us at this point as far as folks in the hospital. We don't know if some of those people were in vehicles down below in that ravine, or if one of those folks was that person on the bus, and which hospital they are at this point. So still learning so much more information for you, and we will let you know when we do find out more from the hospitals here. Christine and Heather.
All right, Amy, thank you. Yes, we hope everyone is recovering okay, and grateful that there are no fatalities.
Yeah, and let's get back out to Andy Sheehan. Andy, we are seeing, it looks like more and more officials and other safety officers of some kind arriving there at the scene.
Well, that's right. Public officials are milling around here. I've been checking into bridge inspection reports on this bridge this morning. You just heard from State Senator Jay Costa, who said that, he told again that this bridge had a poor inspection report back in September, but it was not a priority bridge to be fixed. That there were others ahead of it. This bridge was built in 1970. It's not terribly old. It is what's called an arch truss bridge. There's a sort of an arch underneath, a substructure underneath it, and a flat surface. They're trying to figure out what happened to the bridge, whether this was compromised in the middle or just sort of pancaked and came down. I'm looking at these inspection reports. They go back to September 2011, when the condition of the bridge went from a fair report to a poor report. There was a recommendation going back to 2017 saying that the bridge rehabilitation should be conducted because there was a general failure of deterioration and inadequate strength. And there was a recommendation that there would be a remediation of $1.5 million. Now, earlier we saw a picture underneath the bridge that somebody had tweeted that there was cables that had been severed and a substructure had been rusted out. Now, apparently there is a report, and Councilman O'Connor said those cables and that girder had been replaced. But this recommendation that there was to be $1.5 million of a rehabilitation apparently hadn't happened. So we will be looking and efforting to try to look at these inspection reports over the course of the day and give you an evaluation in our later broadcasts.
And Andy, I know that you live not too far from this. For people who maybe don't know this area as well, describe for me kind of how important that bridge is to that community, how popular it is, as well as the area underneath it, the trails.
Yeah, we were talking about that before. You know, it is going to be a mess here for the next couple of years while they try to replace this bridge. It is a major artery in the east end of Pittsburgh. It's a major artery for people coming in from the eastern suburbs to come into the city. And traffic is just going to be a headache here for a long time to come. People have been emphasizing how fortunate this was that this happened at the time. It did. Had it happened a half hour later, would have been the start of rush hour. You can see this road, Forbes Avenue, going inbound and outbound. There is a backup here every morning, and the bridge, especially in the later hours, there is a backup that goes halfway up this road, and had that happened, then there certainly would have been fatalities. Frick Park, 600 acres, beautiful park, ceded to the city by Henry Clay Frick, the industrialist. It's filled with trails, nature trails that runners, bikers, walkers use every day. There's a main trail that goes underneath this bridge. It's called the Tranquil Trail. I run on it. Runners, walkers use it a lot. Not so much in the winter months. There is less activity there, but on any given morning like this, there would have been walkers and runners there had the weather been any better. So, yeah, this is just the central part of Point Breeze, Squirrel Hill, and a huge loss.
Absolutely. Andy Sheehan, thank you for that perspective and for your reporting on the history of that bridge.
All right, and now we want to turn our attention to President Biden, because as you all know, he is expected to arrive here in Pittsburgh in just a short while. Right now, Marine One touching down at Joint Base Andrews. He will exit Marine One to get onto Air Force One and then travel to the Allegheny County Airport. That is where he is set to touch down. And from there, we'll travel to Hazelwood. At least those were his initial plans, to Hazelwood, to Mill 19, to talk about infrastructure and bringing federal dollars to projects like roads and bridges and locks and dams. Bridges, coincidentally, a big topic here as we saw the collapse this morning. We are still waiting to see if President Biden will in fact make a trip to the Fern Hollow Bridge as part of his stop here in Pittsburgh. We have heard some rumblings that he is going to try and make it there. This is something that I think the city and the county are trying to assist and making happen. In fact, we saw a tweet from incoming mayor, Pittsburgh Mayor Ed Gainey, saying that he just got off the phone with the president and he looked forward to seeing him soon. So we believe that there is some attempt to get him to come to the collapse site. We're just watching this live right now, and we can see a Marine exiting Marine One.
And we're expecting the President Biden, to leave his helicopter, Marine One there, to head to Air Force One to take off for Pittsburgh.
We're all watching this live together here. As we've been reporting this morning, there was a bridge collapse in the city of Pittsburgh in Point Breeze. And this happened around 6:45 this morning. Last check, 10 injuries, but 3 of people went to the hospital. That has since been updated to 4. As we were watching this live, the president was already scheduled to come to Pittsburgh to talk about infrastructure. And earlier this morning, in fact, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki tweeted that they are watching the events. And here is the president now making his way to Air Force One. Jen Psaki tweeting earlier this morning that the president was aware of the collapse. Of course, he has been since speaking with the mayor, and tweeting that they continue to gather information about the cause of the collapse. Grateful to the first responders who rushed to assist the drivers who were on the bridge at the time. The president will proceed with his trip, as we are seeing here, to Pittsburgh and stay in touch with officials on the ground about additional assistance we can provide. And again, we did see those phone calls are already happening. The president already speaking to Mayor Ed Gainey about the collapse.
And we are seeing President Biden live here, leaving Marine One, his helicopter, to head to Air Force One, the president's airplane, which will shortly take off to head to Pittsburgh to the Allegheny County Airport, which was scheduled to arrive here at 12:30. We understand it's running a little bit late. The president heading there right up the red steps to get onto Air Force One to head to Pittsburgh, a previously scheduled trip. And this president saluting and waving as he heads onto Air Force One to head to Pittsburgh. Again, we were anticipating this anyway, but the timing is remarkably striking that he was coming here to speak about his $1 trillion infrastructure bill that passed through Congress that is now going to be spent over the next 5 years. Primarily, the biggest focus was on our infrastructure like roads and bridges and railways, in addition to other things like drinking water and high-speed internet and environmental concerns. But this could not more poignantly show how dire this money is needed.
Yeah, we're taking some more live images right now. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman has been on scene, and we spoke with him earlier this morning. So we want to just take a listen. Again, this was earlier this morning on scene. So if you see that live image in the corner, this was from just a few hours ago.
Brings it to a head just how critical these investments are to not only our community here in Pittsburgh, but all across the country.
Now, we had that huge bridge collapse a few years ago. Does this kind of bring you back to that moment? Have you seen anything like this?
We're the city of bridges. I mean, and how many other are out there? And it's just like these funds are critical to make sure that we're able to provide a safe transportation infrastructure for our residents. And it's jarring to see it up close and personal, how a bridge that you drove on yesterday just collapsed and fell into Frick Park. So, we have to make these critical investments, and hopefully, if anything good can come from this, catastrophe here, that we need to make these kind of critical investments in our communities and our nation.
Anything to say to first responders right now, the people who may be involved? We know 3 people were taken to the hospital, 10 injuries.
Yeah, it's just like they've done a superb job down there. They're even flying drones around to make sure that nothing's been overlooked, and they've been magnificent. And to those that have been hurt, thank God that it doesn't appear to be anything life-threatening. And it's just it's just an awful, surreal scene. But if anything good can come from it, is this idea.
Listening in earlier from Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman.
Yeah, and it really struck me when he said the word jarring, because I do think it is really jarring when you see what happened there. You see the car there on the hillside that fell off the bridge, and then the bridge itself just completely collapsed over that ravine. You see the bus there on the bridge there. It still is jarring. We're going to bring you more news on KDKA News at noon starting right now.
Live from the KDKA Broadcast Center, this is KDKA TV News at noon.
And we continue breaking news coverage this noon of a major bridge collapse in Pittsburgh's Point Breeze neighborhood. It happened just before 7 this morning on Forbes Avenue, the bridge over the Hot Dog Dam Park in Frick Park.
Now, several cars were on the bridge at the time, along with a Port Authority bus. 10 people were injured. 4, we understand, are in the hospital. Their injuries are not life-threatening. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for staying with us here on the air. And as we follow this situation, I'm Christine Sorensen along with Heather Abraham.
And we want to keep you the most up to date on everything going on, from the people involved to what this means for the city. The collapse, of course, happening just hours before President Joe Biden is due in town talking about infrastructure. And we have live team coverage at this hour. Our crews have been on the scene covering every single angle of this. We start first with Bryant Reed. He was the first on the scene this morning.
Yeah, this bridge collapse happened just before 7 o'clock this morning. Neighbors told me that it sounded like an airplane was going over their home. Another one said it sounded like a snowplow was just ripping up the pavement. Incredible and scary scenes for neighbors in this area. I'm just going to go ahead and give you a look at what the scene is now. It's been off and on with first responders all day. Now, crews responded to the Port Authority bus along with about 4 other vehicles stuck on the bridge when this happened. Below the bridge is a ravine, and that's where they all ended up. Now, as you mentioned earlier, 10 people were checked out and looked at. Pittsburgh Public Safety says 3 of them at that time went to the hospital, but as right now, everybody is doing okay. However, we did just learn about another one. Fire Chief Daryl Jones tells us that the rescue attempt was very extensive, and the weather posed some problems in response to how fast they were able to get to the scene. Now, several state and local law officials have come to check on the damage, including Mayor Ed Gainey, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, and County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, who all say that infrastructure funding is essential.
The outpouring of support to help with this has been tremendous. As the mayor said, the city paramedics and fire and police being here, county, state, got a call from the governor, we got a call from the White House, everyone's reaching out to help. As the mayor said, thankfully at this point, the preliminary reports are minor injuries, or injuries that are non-life threatening, might be a better way to say that. And to think about what a major artery this bridge is for so many people coming, from the East End, from the eastern suburbs, coming on in through Squirrel Hill and on into Oakland and town.
Now this is such a severe and extreme response to the scene, and understandably so, with just the amount of damage that was done to this. Search and rescue crews are still on scene now, but that doesn't necessarily mean that anybody is in danger. They're just doing their job, trying to uncover the rubble, make sure that nobody is under those, like they've been flying heat-seeking drones over for the majority of the day. And they're also trying to clear out that space so nobody else can get hurt. Reporting live this afternoon, I'm Bryant Reed, KDKA News.
Bryant, thank you. Tremendous job this morning on his reporting. Federal investigators are headed to Pittsburgh to investigate.
The National Transportation Safety Board tweeted just a short time ago, NTSB launching GO team to Pittsburgh bridge collapse. Chair Jennifer Hamady will be on board, a member on scene, arriving this afternoon. You can monitor Twitter, the NTSB newsroom, for updates.
Our coverage continues now with KDKA's Megan Schiller.
And she's been speaking with people who use Frick Park a lot. Megan.
That's right. There have been dozens and dozens of people coming out to this side of the collapse where I am, right along the trail. I want to direct your attention, though, to all of the officials, including the mayor, including Rich Fitzgerald, who we just heard from, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman here in his shorts, so he's easy to pick out. They are now getting the view from this other side, literally standing just feet away from the edge. Down below, we have seen some search and rescue crews. We have seen people down there that are, as we have mentioned, using canines, search dogs, also those heat sensing drones in order to try to find out if there's anyone that is underneath down near where this dog park is, down on the trail. So you can see, I'm not sure, it's hard because of the trees, but there are people in yellow safety vests and white hard hats that have been walking around and trying to maneuver. There's a creek that runs under there if you're familiar with this dog park. There was a viewer who sent us photos of the dog park and said that the collapse literally almost hit the edge fence of the dog park that is very, very busy this time. I mean, despite the temperatures, despite the fact that it's snowing, we have seen nearly hundreds of people out here with their dogs so far this morning. A lot of people that were already here in the park when this happened, others that are coming in order to see it for themselves. We're going to keep you posted as we're out here, as search crews continue to look, just in order to make sure that there was no one injured or affected down beneath. As for these officials, they are just gathered right now on the street, debriefing. We have seen some pieces of machinery come in, not sure exactly what they were doing, getting pretty precariously close to the edge here of where this bridge collapsed. And when you look across the bridge from where we're standing, right at the intersection of the North Clayton and South Clayton Trail, it is really interesting because you can see from our perspective how the bridge disconnected from the other side where Brian Reed has been reporting and slid down to the point where you can just see the soil and the dirt underneath, and then cracked, almost snapped in half like a cookie halfway down. About 5 cars I counted, including one truck and that bus we mentioned. We're going to be out here continuing to talk to people who are just stopping by, and also any official updates we can get, we'll of course pass them along. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Megan, thank you for that perspective. Yes, we're now hearing 5 vehicles, cars, plus the bus.
So now we want to get to Robert Sumwalt, and he is a former chairman of the NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board. Robert, thank you so much for joining us. Judging this situation, seeing what you're seeing, what is the first thing the launch team is going to do once they get on ground?
Well, thank you for having me, and certainly thoughts and prayers for everyone involved in this event. The NTSB should be arriving later this afternoon, and they will want to stake out the territory, just get a general overview of the lay of the land, and then they will start dividing up into their specialties to begin the investigation.
And Mr. Sumwalt, tell us, when you look at something like this, what is your first reaction? I mean, as someone who lives here, we think, how could this happen? We have so many bridges. What's going on?
Well, great question. And certainly bridge collapses are very rare, fortunately, in this country. But also, fortunately, even though they're rare, the NTSB does have good experience with investigating bridge collapses and getting to the bottom of it so that we can ensure that these types of things don't happen in the future.
You know, I think a big question for a lot of people here in Western Pennsylvania, because we have so many bridges, I think most people can say they cross at least one a day, either to or from work or running errands, whatever it may be, is the reports that we're getting, this bridge was in poor condition in many of the aspects of the bridge. how is it okay for people to continue traveling on poor bridges? Is there a standard, and what is the cutoff?
Well, there are standards, and your question is a very good one. The real question will be, why is it that this one collapsed under these conditions? And I think that's the big question that needs to be answered. I certainly don't want the public to be alarmed and thinking that every bridge is going to collapse, but I'm sure the NTSB will get to the bottom of this and come out with a very good report.
And Mr. Somwalt, tell us, how rare is it for a major bridge of this kind of span with this kind of traffic to collapse?
Well, fortunately, it's very rare. The last major bridge collapse was in 2007 with the collapse of an I-35W bridge in Minneapolis. And so these types of collapses are very rare.
Still alarming to see. We thank you for providing us some insight into this situation. As we've been reporting, we understand the NTSB will be on the ground here sometime this afternoon, and we'll continue to follow those developments. Robert Somwalt, former chairman with the NTSB, thank you so much.
All right, and let's take a look now because we want to hear how the weather's looking for the day. We know we had a lot of snow. We had a lot of snow delays and school delays. So Mary Hours joins us now, meteorologist Mary Hours. Mary, tell us what's happening.
Yeah, so we still have this cold front that's moving through the region. We still have a few bands of snow out there. Most of those are starting to weaken as they move to the southeast, but right now for places, most of that into Beaver County, northwestern parts of Beaver County, you're seeing some snow coming down pretty quickly. And then this is going to move to the south and east, so there are some gaps with this. We didn't see much snow, but still some wet roadways, so you're going to need to be careful. And then temperatures are going to drop behind the system, so we actually have to watch for a deep freeze too. So looking at radar, you can see those heavier bands for places into Beaver County. And again, there's not much snow out there. This isn't a widespread system. A lot of areas did only see about an inch, but we did have a few higher amounts, places closer to 2 inches and in that 2-inch range, like Westmoreland, Fayette, so Masontown, New Stanton, to name a few, and then about 2 inches for Dunleavy. Now, as we head through the day, we could pick up an additional inch or less, but again, it's still not going to be much. And then we're going to be drying out as the day goes on, but those bridges are the places that could see a little bit of that higher accumulation. So for the month, just want to show you 18.6 inches so far with the snow we had today. And this is the snowiest since 2011 when there was 24.1 inches. Don't think we're going to beat that, but the snowiest was back in 1978 where there was just over 40 inches of snow. So today, again, we're going to be dealing with temperatures continuing to drop. We were in the 30s, so right now we are at 28 degrees. And just looking at temperatures around the map, you can see them starting to fall for places like Franklin and Youngstown, even Butler, 29 with those snow showers, and also a few snow showers in Pittsburgh. So just be careful out there on the roads. We're looking at temperatures dropping back down to those single digits. Wind chills below 0. Tomorrow morning's not even going to be the coldest morning. Sunday, our actual low temperatures are going to be below 0, and that means sub-zero wind chills and a high risk for frostbite. So I'm going to break it all down for you in Futurecast and give you your full forecast and when we can see a warm up coming up.
All right, Mary, thank you. And as you know, we've been following breaking news today of a bridge collapse. A bus right now, as you're seeing from a viewer picture on that bridge, sliding down, and thankfully, really, the bridge buckled at the right place, stopping that bus from sliding even farther.
And just to recap, in case you are just joining us, again, this is the original image we had from about 6:45 this morning when this happened. The Fern Hollow Bridge collapsed near over Frick Park this morning. 10 people injured, 4 now in the hospital. Thankfully, no injuries are believed to be life-threatening. There was a gas leak at one point, but the gas has been turned off, and that is now not an issue. First responders have been on the scene since the beginning and continue to work to confirm that no one was under the bridge at the time.
And again, we want to get out to Amy Wada. She has been at UPMC Presbyterian Hospital for us this morning, working to learn more about those who were injured. Amy?
Heather, as you guys have been reporting all morning, it's just miraculous that no one here died in this collapse. We do know that 4 people, though, are in the hospital. We've got 3 here at UPMC Presbyterian, and now UPMC tells us that there's a 4th person who was taken to UPMC's Shady Side. All adults, all in fair condition. That's all we know about their condition at this point. I've been trying to get information from the Port Authority, from Pittsburgh Public Safety, from UPMC on where these 4 people were at the time of this collapse, but none of them can tell me any of that information at this point. The only thing I do know from the Port Authority's spokesperson, Adam Brandolph, who we've heard speaking to us earlier on a live interview this morning, that one of those people who was on that PAT bus on the bridge, when those people were removed, there were 3 people on the bus, a driver and 2 passengers. One of those passengers, after they left the scene, they had reported some injuries about 2 hours later, and then were taken to the hospital. And we don't know if that person was taken to Shady Side or if that person was taken here to Presbyterian. So I'm sure we'll learn more later as this situation unfolds. But that's all we know at this point out here in Oakland. So of course, we'll continue to keep you updated on this developing story, and we will bring it to you as soon as we can. Heather and Christine, back to you.
All right, Amy, thank you so much for that update. And we want to bring you some reactions we're hearing from local leaders. Here's a reaction from Controller Michael Lamb from the city of Pittsburgh. He says, a reminder that investments in infrastructure are investments in public safety. Allegheny County has more structurally deficient bridges than any other county in the nation. If we do not act, events like this will, unfortunately, continue to happen. And we've been getting additional tweets. Here's one from U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. He says, closely monitoring the situation at Frick Park Bridge in Pittsburgh, which of course is the Fern Hollow Bridge, and grateful for the first responders on scene. Our department is in touch with PennDOT and local authorities to offer our support, and the U.S. Department of Transportation stands ready to assist. And I believe we've got one more. This is Jen Psaki, the press secretary for President Biden. She says the president is grateful to the first responders who rushed to assist to the drivers who were on the bridge at the time. The president will proceed with trip plan for today and will stay in touch with officials on the ground about additional assistance that we can provide. And as we just showed you less than a half hour ago, the president is now on Air Force One on his way to Pittsburgh and the Allegheny County Airport as we speak.
And we want to give you now a listen to what neighbors and people in that area heard this morning at the time of the collapse. Take a listen. You can hear that rumbling. This is Nest doorbell video. You can hear the collapse there. This is from the 700 block of East End Avenue. And really startling for neighbors in that area who at the time had no idea what was going on. Our crews are covering this from all angles.
And KDKA's Andy Sheehan is live on the scene now. Andy, tell us where you are and what you're seeing.
I am on Forbes Avenue in Squirrel Hill, Point Breeze on the borderline, just in the front of this, going down this this hill here. We do see some sort of official-looking vehicles going down there, some SWAT vehicles. Our information is that the president will be trying to come to this scene to survey the damage and also make a point about the reason he is in town to tout the benefits of this infrastructure bill. We just heard a statement from City Controller Michael Lamb, who talked about the deterioration of buildings, of bridges rather, throughout Allegheny County, some of the worst in the state. I have been efforting today to look at the inspection reports on this particular bridge that was built in 1970. There are poor reports going back to 2011, and in 2017 there was a recommendation that there will be some major work done on this bridge to the tune of about $1.5 million, and does not appear that any of that work was done. We did see some damage that was taken by some citizens back 2 years ago, some broken cables and some rusted out beams. They apparently were replaced, but the major overhaul of this bridge did not happen. But it's a sort of a commentary on the state of bridges throughout our region, that this bridge was not a priority, that there are other bridges that were deemed to be in worse shape, and that in September, just going back into September, this was inspected, did get a poor rating, but was not one of the bridges that is on sort of the front burner about getting some remedial help or an overhaul. So this sort of puts an exclamation point on the president's visit today, that the state of America's bridges and roads are in dire need, and our information still is that the White House would like to come to this scene, and they are efforting to do that. Back to you.
All right, Andy Sheehan live on the scene. Thank you. Now, as we know, Pittsburgh is a city of bridges, but many are in need of repairs. And information from PennDOT's site on bridge conditions lists this bridge, the Fern Hollow Bridge, as in poor condition. The deck and the superstructure some of those in satisfactory. KDK's Mary Hours has been looking into more about this bridge, and as she's tracking the weather as well. But Mary, tell us a little more about what you've learned about this bridge.
Yeah, so it's been in poor condition since 2011, and whenever you look at the last inspection on the National Bridge Inventory Data site, so this was back in 2017, it was listed in poor condition. The structural appraisal said it meets minimum tolerable limits to be left in place as is, and then the geometry appraisal was requiring high priority of correction action, and the recommended work was to fix the general structure deterioration and the strength, and the cost of just that alone was $1.5 million. So now it's going to be even more, and when you think about traffic on that, 14.5 thousand. So 14,500 cars on average travel on this as of 2005. So that number could be even higher right now, and 7% of those are trucks. And they're going to be looking at if weather played a factor in this. There was some snow out there. We've had a lot of snowfall so far this month. It's been very warm. It's been very cold. So now we are seeing a few snow showers out there. Switching gears to what's going on our radar right now. And you've seen images of the bridge collapse, and there's snow out there, but places in Allegheny County only saw about an inch, and then we did have some higher amounts for places. So looking at our satellite and radar, most of those snow bands are still into northwestern parts of Beaver County, and that's going to continue to move to the south and off to the east. So places into Uniontown, so Fayette County, south of I-70, that's where we still have a little bit of that snow, so that's where we'll get an additional inch or so. So right now in downtown Pittsburgh, we are at 28 degrees. Winds are out of the north, and temperatures are going to be falling. So temperatures at the moment still at 29 Butler, 30 Washington, above that freezing mark in Waynesburg, but temperatures falling, so we're going to be dealing with a refreeze, and it's going to be much colder by tomorrow morning. We're going to see those temperatures in the single digits and wind chills below zero. So breaking it down for you in Futurecast, the ridges are still going to have snow showers till about 6 o'clock this evening, really, and then those are going to taper off. So again, an additional inch or even 2 inches possible for those places along the ridges, less amounts for areas north once this cold front moves through in that band I was showing you. But the big thing is the cold temperature, so we're not done with that just yet. By Sunday morning, that's going to be the coldest morning with actual temperatures below zero. So we're still in the upper 20s today. By tonight, 3 degrees, gradual clearing, and winds will be light, but that's still going to bring our wind chills below zero. So looking at our 7-day forecast, we are only in the teens Saturday, and yeah, we have sunshine, but it will be deceiving. That's the coldest day, but the coldest morning will be Sunday with actual temperatures 2 degrees below zero. There's going to be some places even colder than that. Cloudy skies, a small chance for snow showers Sunday into the evening, and then by Monday, we start our thaw, 34 degrees. Clouds early on, and then we'll see some sunshine. Lows will be back in the teens, more seasonable. Tuesday, mostly cloudy, mid-40s, and we're actually going to stay in the 40s for Wednesday. Low 40s, a chance for rain and snow, but check out that 50 degrees with showers Thursday.
Mary, thank you. And we continue to follow breaking news of a bridge collapse in Point Breeze. This is on Forbes Avenue over the Hot Dog Dam Park in Frick Park. And we're getting a look at this from several different vantage points.
Yes, let's go live now to KDKA's Ross Godotti, who's been on the scene for quite a while this morning. Ross, tell us what's happening.
All right, you can hear behind me construction equipment putting Jersey barriers at what was once the abutment to the bridge that is now sitting inside this ravine in Pittsburgh. You can take a look at it. Pittsburgh Public Works is on scene. They're trying to clear this out. They also have brought in the City of Pittsburgh's command center, several officials standing over there, waiting to see what's going to happen next. There is a slight hint of natural gas still in the area from a ruptured main that apparently played a role in all of this in some way, shape, or form, but we have been told those lines have been purged and turned off, and that natural gas smell might just be residual natural gas still in the area or in the line, but does not pose any particular damage or any particular threat to do damage to anyone. As for the bridge itself, it continues. It's an amazing sight. I'm going to step out the way here a little bit to see it's fallen several hundred feet into the ravine. Now what has to be done is to, of course, make sure there's nobody there that by chance was underneath it. There are no reports that that's even the case, but of course they have to take a look at it, and then they have to evaluate the structure itself for eventual removal. And on top of that, they have a gigantic bus and a number of other things sitting on it, but those are for days to come. The first thing they need to do right now, however, is make sure the structure is relatively stable to be approached by those investigating this particular incident. So it's going to be a long time before you start to see those things moved out of here. What's so interesting is when you look at the structure or you see that bus, an amazing image of that bus that slid down and part of the bridge collapsing actually stopped it from sliding down anymore. And then, of course, you heard about the well thought out human chain rescue that happened this morning. The bridge has been, we've documented it throughout the morning, a bridge of suspect integrity. And that suspect integrity proved itself with this unbelievable collapse. Now, if I can, I don't know if you can see them or not, but there are individuals continuing to walk on the far side of the bridge from where I'm at, evaluating the substructure, or so it would appear. And there's a car sitting on its roof not too far away from them. It is really remarkable that no one was killed. It's beyond impossible to believe. We were talking to a man who lives here. He told us a little earlier his children go across that bridge to school in the morning, and he's just thankful that there were no more cars on that bridge when this incredible event took place. Now, of course, there's word that we might be seeing a presidential visit here, so there's a lot of movement going around. No word if we can confirm that or not. But needless to say, they've moved everybody out from under, or not out from under, but from near the bridge who isn't supposed to be there. Media and a lot of other folks are now showing up, gawking about, trying to get close to the bridge, and they're being told at once to please leave the area because this structure isn't remotely safe yet. There's no way to tell what it can do or if it's going to do anything. And not to mention the fact that they've got to get equipment eventually down there. But, of course, we don't know when that's going to happen right now. They're just trying to evaluate the structure for its structural integrity to make sure it doesn't slide, slip, or collapse anymore. So many more things have to be done here over the next couple months and years to see the bridge replaced. But more than anything, the big question is how did this happen? How did a bridge that had at one point a 26-ton rating end up in this condition with a PAT bus and a couple other vehicles on board? That is basically the view from here. We're going to send it back to you.
All right, Ross, thank you so much for your insight there from that vantage point.
And all morning, we've been hearing from local leaders, many of them on the scene, starting about an hour and a half after this incident happened. One of them, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, who lives right down the road in Braddock, who grew up there and who now says he drives over that road frequently. Let's listen to what he said earlier today.
The fact that this could have been much worse, we were fortunate that there was a public school delay and the traffic could have been much more pronounced. So from my perspective, I hope it's a wake-up call to the nation that we need to make these critical infrastructure investments and make sure that everyone is afforded the ability to have a safe drive to work. It's just like the fact that there were vehicles on that. I'm just grateful nobody was killed.
Yeah, many people grateful for the timing of this, that it wasn't later in the day, that the bus was actually outbound, not inbound with commuters, which could have been more full. There were only 3 people on the bus, the driver and 2 passengers. And again, we know 4 people in the hospital now. Just one more update, too. We understand President Biden, we know on his way, scheduled to land now at 12:50.
Yeah, it's something we will continue to cover. Still a question mark whether he will visit the site of the bridge collapse. That is something that Andy Sheehan had reported earlier, that there was some communication to see if they could possibly get him to that site. One of the first reporters on the scene there was Bryant Reed. We want to go back live to him now. Bryant, you've been talking with people in that neighborhood, what they heard. I remember when you first got on scene there this morning, you could still smell the gas in the area because of the gas leak. It seems like so long ago now, but that was one of the initial threats in the area after this collapse.
Yeah, Heather, that was one of the first things, as you mentioned. As soon as we stepped out of the car and rolled down the window, we were able to smell that gas that was coming from that gas line that broke here underneath the bridge. Businesses had to be evacuated, as well as homes had to be evacuated also out of safety. And I'm going to go ahead and step out of the way to give you all a closer look at what we're seeing now. As you know, crews have been here all day since the call came in just before 7 early this morning. Neighbors say it sounded like an airplane flying over their homes. Another neighbor told me that it sounded like a snowplow was digging up pavement. Now, when crews responded, they found a Port Authority bus and about 4 other vehicles on the bridge when it happened. Now, below the bridge is a ravine, and that's where all of the vehicles ended up. That bus was just hanging on by a thread there to the ledge. Now, 10 people were checked out at the time of it happened. We are now finding out that 4 people are in the hospital, but we are told that everybody is doing okay at this time. Fire Chief Daryl Jones has told us Now, this was a very extensive rescue process. They even had to do a daisy chain. For those of you that don't know, that's when each person is holding on to each other and you have to reach down to grab the people that you're trying to rescue. And so that was one of the ways that they had to get the people out of harm's way and back onto even road. Now, several state and local law officials have come to check on the damage, including Mayor Ed Gainey, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, and County Executive Rich Fitzgerald, who all say that infrastructure funding is essential, and they've praised first responders.
The outpouring of support to help with this has been tremendous. As the mayor said, the city paramedics and fire and police being here, county, state, got a call from the governor. We got a call from the White House. Everyone's reaching out to help. As the mayor said, thankfully at this point, the preliminary reports are minor injuries, or injuries that are non-life-threatening, might be a better way to say that. And to think about what a major artery this bridge is for so many people coming, from the East End, from the eastern suburbs, coming on in through Squirrel Hill and on into Oakland and town.
Now, search and rescue crews are on scene currently, but that doesn't necessarily mean that anybody is in danger. That just means that they're trying to clear the rubble and trying to make sure that nobody else gets hurt from the situation. You can see some of the work that they're doing now from this angle and from the camera view that we are giving you. So as crews continue to be on scene, we believe that nobody else is in harm's way from this. But of course, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. Many of those we expect to come not within these exact moments, but within the coming days. Reporting live this afternoon, I'm Bryant Reed, KDKA News.
Yes, Bryant Reed live on the scene from the very beginning. Thank you.
And our last update from the city on this bridge collapse, if you are just joining us, came around 8:30 this morning. We just got some new information from the city kind of clarifying some of the details. This bridge collapsed around 6:39, according to this email this morning. This is the Forbes Avenue stretch of this bridge, and rescue operations concluded just after 8:30 in the morning. As we've been talking about, 10 people were evaluated and treated for minor injuries.